Good morning and welcome to the August 14th, 2024 meeting of the Natural Resources Board. We're obviously out of Madison and here in Turtle Lake today. Our hosts are the St. Croix tribe in use of this facility. And I just want to talk briefly about that. These out of Madison meetings are very important to the board. We try and make ourselves accessible to the public throughout the state, and being able to take these meetings out into the field on occasion really helps. And it helps the board a lot to get out and to see firsthand the resources that we deal with and the decisions that we're faced with. To have that feet on the ground look and the advice of local staff that are working on those projects is extremely helpful to the board and makes us more effective in our duties on the board. So again, thanks to the St. Croix tribe for use of this facility and for hosting. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our great nation. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now call our hybrid meeting of the Wisconsin Natural Resources Board to order. Hybrid, we have some of our presenters will be on Zoom, and in this case, we have a couple of our board members that are going to join us on the Zoom and a virtual appearance. They had work conflicts and schedule conflicts that prevented them from attending in person, and having this technology really helps to keep them engaged and to be able to deal with other circumstances outside of the board meeting. A couple of administrative announcements before we get to our agenda. Please turn off any phones or other devices that might interrupt the meeting. And please minimize the background noise. Sometimes the mics pick it up and it makes it difficult for people to hear. Participants via Zoom, the presenters, please make sure you are muted and your video is turned off until your item is announced. And also just note that there's sometimes a delay in the broadcast and it's easy for us to talk over one another, and just be patient and we'll get those situations straightened out. Our meetings are also televised live via YouTube, and we have a number of people that tune in to view, and I thank all of our viewers for your interest and your attendance at this meeting. Records of our meetings are available for review on the DNR website. They're under Natural Resources Board Briefs of Action. Direct public involvement and open, transparent meetings are the foundation of how this board has operated for over 50 years and for how we operate today. Our Natural Resource Board discussions and decision-making are transparent to all, and public testimony is welcome at every regularly scheduled Natural Resource Board meeting. To ensure fair and equal time for all, please limit your testimony to 3 minutes. If you can condense your remarks down to the key things you want to convey, that would be very helpful. That's done in order to ensure everybody gets equal and fair opportunity to make their points before the board. We have this light system here, and up on the podium, that's a reminder. When the yellow light flashes, you have 30 seconds left, and if you could please bring your comments to summary at that time, that will keep us on that 3-minute schedule. Oftentimes, people have a lot more that they'd like to share with the board, a lot of detail, a lot of insight, and I just want to let everyone know that you are very welcome to add written comments to the board in addition to your appearance. So you can keep your spoken testimony down to the 3 minutes. You can supplement as appropriate with written materials. I want to thank Assistant Deputy Secretary Mark Aquino on my left, you and Deputy Secretary Stephen Little and your leadership team for your support of the board and your commitment to enhance collaboration between the department, the board, and the citizens that we serve. Thank you to our issue presenters, our DNR Information Technology, Office of Communication, General Counsel, and all support staff that make these meetings possible. Your time is valuable, and we appreciate your support very much. I want to make a special thanks to Northern Region Director James Jock and Sue Snyder. Sue is with us today over there in white on the side table. Sue helped out, and James is here too. Thank you, James. They put together the logistics for the meeting and handled the field stops and the field briefings, and there was a lot of time and energy, and I want to thank them particularly, and all of the staff that supported the day in the field yesterday. It was extremely valuable to the board, and I just want to pass on our appreciation. I also want to individually recognize Katie Majeski over there, left on the table. Katie is filling in as the Natural Resource Board liaison at this meeting, and periodically our normal liaison, Ashley Bistel, is off on family leave. And we had a chance to talk with Ashley a few days ago and just check in. She says that she and her brand new daughter, Ivy, are doing very well, and she sends her regards to the board, the department staff, and all the citizens that she's become friends with. So that's wonderful news. And lastly, I would like to thank all the employees, the citizen volunteers, the conservation partners, to the Department of Natural Resources for your commitment and your tireless work to protect and enhance our natural resources and to serve all the citizens of our great state. Board members, any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our agenda. Katie, would you please call the roll?
Paul Berg,
Present.
Patty Shockman,
Present.
Liz Cox, Deb Dasso,
Present.
Robin Schmidt,
Present.
Marcy West,
Present.
Bill Smith.
Present. Thank you. We have a quorum. With that, next item on our agenda is the Secretary's remarks. Assistant Deputy Secretary Mark Aquino.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I'd like to echo your thanks, appreciation for the St. Paul Band, Lake Superior Chippewa for hosting not only this meeting, but last night's dinner. In particular, Chair Fowler and his prayer that he offered at the beginning of our social and our dinner. And also to express deep gratitude and appreciation for all of the great conservation, resource management work that all of the tribes do across the state, and express how much we appreciate their partnership and look forward to continuing to work together into the future. Also want to echo Chair Smith's thanks to all the staff who made the tour a great success, and for the work you do every day, and for the big lift that it takes to bring these meetings out of Madison. It's well worth it to make sure that the board can see these things directly and speak directly to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Move on to item 1C, approval of the agenda for August 14, 2024. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. Then we'll need a motion to either approve or amend from the board when you're ready.
I would move to approve the agenda.
Got a
Second.
motion to approve from Robin
Second.
and a second from Paul. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Say no. Okay, motion carries. We have an agenda. We'll move on to item 2, the consent agenda. It consists of item A, approval of the brief of action from June 26, 2024. 2B, requests the board authorize a preliminary public hearing and comment period for the statement of scope for board order LE 0524 for proposed rules affecting chapter NR 64 related to all-terrain vehicles. Item 2C, acknowledgement of a donation. Friends of Peninsula State Park donated purpose-built mountain bike trails, phase 1, valued at $650,000. This donation will be used to construct approximately 9 miles of mountain bike trails for park visitors. Item 2D, acknowledgement of a donation. Marathon County donated up to $175,000 of services to repair and replace the jointly operated Big Old Plain aerator. Item 2E, acknowledgement of a donation. Matt and Ann Drury donated $110,000. This donation will be used to build an open-air picnic shelter to provide a comfortable place for park users to gather in all types of weather at the Kettle Moraine State Forest Northern Unit. And we have a couple more. Item 2F, approval of a donation. Request the board approves donation of $50,000 from Field Adventures to be used by the Bureau of Fisheries Management to support a project for the Spider Lake chain in Sawyer County that studies the interaction between northern pike and muskellunge to better understand why muskie populations have declined in systems where northern pike have been introduced. Item 2G, approval of a donation. Request the board approves the donation of $10,000 from Dairyman's Foundation Incorporated to be used by the Bureau of Fisheries Management to support University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point master's student graduate research investigating the distribution of fish community production in lakes with stable walleye recruitment versus those where walleye recruitment has declined over time in Forest, Oneida, and Vilas County lakes. And item 2H, approval of a donation. Request the board approves the donation of $5,000 from the Hayward Lake Chapter of Muskies, Inc. to be used by the Bureau of Fisheries Management to support the study of the interaction between northern pike and muskellunge to better understand why muskies have declined in systems where northern pike have been introduced. Before I ask for a motion to approve, I'd just like to comment that once again, we have a long list of donations here. I think this totals up to just about $1 million for this month. And to me, it is just an amazing message of commitment and generosity of our citizens, our partner groups, and all the people that pitch in to help make our natural resources programs better. So a very big thank you to people, but this isn't a unique month. Several months we've had donations with large amounts of money, large amounts of donated time, and it is just it's just very, very rewarding to see that come in. And I just want to extend our thanks to everybody out there that's a part of that. With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Patty moves
Second.
approval and Marcy seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Deb. I'll catch up with that pause yet.
Chairman,
Oh, Doug's.
Doug, it sounds like you're on board also. Thanks
I
for
am,
joining.
so I could not hear very well when the roll call went. My audio wasn't working. It's good now though, so I just wanted to make sure you knew I was present.
All right, thank you very much for clearing that up. And I will try and slow down a little bit to enable the delay to get your votes in on time before I jump to the next item. Item 3 has no items on the agenda. And item 4, action items. 4A, request adoption of Board Order AM 0522, proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 439 to simplify, reduce, and make more efficient the reporting, record-keeping, testing, inspection, and determinations of compliance for sources of air contaminants. Maria Hill, Compliance Enforcement and Emissions Inventory Section Manager. Maria, are you here? Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Smith and members of the board. I'm before you today to request adoption, get over here, to request adoption for proposed rule revisions to Chapter NR 439, Board Order AM 0522, which simplifies, reduces, and makes more efficient record keeping, reporting, monitoring, and compliance demonstrations for facilities with air contaminants while remaining consistent with Clean Air Act requirements. Do I have control of the slides? Okay, thank you. see. Okay, a bit of background. Chapter 439 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code serves the important role of establishing record keeping, reporting, monitoring, and other compliance demonstration requirements necessary to meet Clean Air Act permit and planning requirements. Over 2,400 facilities in Wisconsin emit air pollution, are subject to at least some parts of Chapter 439, from large power plants to mid-sized food manufacturers to small foundries. Federally approvable permit programs are necessary to demonstrate that the state can attain and maintain national ambient air quality standards. This proposed rulemaking to revise Chapter 439 is part of the department's ongoing effort to simplify record-keeping, reporting, and monitoring requirements and make the process for demonstrating compliance easier while remaining consistent with applicable requirements in the Clean Air Act. In addition to modernizing the rule language to account for changing technology and ensuring requirements are no more onerous than necessary to meet federal requirements, the department is proposing to reduce administrative burden of monitoring and reporting, including allowing facilities more time for reporting deviations from normal operations. Introduce credible evidence language to clarify that nothing in Chapter NR 439 precludes the use of other information relevant to whether a facility would have been in compliance. Simplify requirements for when facilities need to prepare plans and reports by clarifying applicability and content required, as well as providing additional exclusions from plan preparation and reporting requirements. The air management program provided stakeholder outreach throughout the rulemaking process as shown on this slide. I'll make preliminary hearing and comment period on the proposed scope statement. Fall of 2022, we held information sessions for our air management advisory group and permittees. Winter, we had 8 small group listening sessions, providing another opportunity for all that are affected by this rule to participate and comment. We created a 439 rulemaking webpage with timeline details and which also includes all the comments we received and responses to those comments. We convened a technical advisory committee that met 8 times in the spring of 2023. I personally provided presentations at WMC and paper council meetings. And during an environmental impact assessment comment period and a rule comment period, we received comments from 6 organizations, which we then responded to. Department made as many changes as we could to accommodate comments from stakeholders, working with EPA to ensure the air program remains federally approvable. In response to feedback received throughout the process, the department made the following changes. Addition of the credible evidence language to allow any information supporting a compliance determination. Alignment with federal rule while still protecting public health and meeting our program approval requirements. Definitions, record keeping and reporting timelines, and monitoring equipment accuracy. Proposed language was all changed to be responsive to comments where possible and to match federal rule language. We revised the deviation reporting requirements. Commenters requested more time to report deviations, investigate and report. And we went from timelines of 2 days, 30 days, or 6 months, depending on the severity, to deviations that result in emission limitation exceedances to be reported within 10 days. All other deviations can now be reported and consolidated together with annual or semi-annual monitoring reporting. We updated the rule to allow for new technologies. The chapter no longer includes equipment-specific monitoring technologies, such as pressure devices across the filter. Specific technologies can quickly become out of date. Instead, the rule now allows for monitoring approaches to be developed during drafting of the air permit specific to a facility. At this point, the program has streamlined this rule as much as we can without jeopardizing EPA approvability. Even though we've streamlined as far as possible, this proposed rule does not have an environmental disbenefit when compared to the current rule. The proposed rule continues to protect public health, ensuring we all have clean air to breathe. Oops, it's not forwarding. Sorry, my slides aren't forwarding. Here we go. Oops. All right, one more. Oh, okay. I'd like to thank you for your time today, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
We have no public appearances on this item. We did have one written comment that came in from the Paper Council in support of passage. Does the board have any questions? Robin?
So I'd like to just ask for clarification because I think you alluded to this, but it's important that these rules meet the EPA rule requirements. Otherwise, could you just explain what's at jeopardy if they don't?
The state needs an approvable program, meaning we are required to implement the federal rules that are finalized. And if we do not have approval for that implementation, EPA would take back the program. So they have been involved all along. We had a member from EPA on our technical advisory committee to assure, as we had conversations with stakeholders, that we would still meet that approvability.
And I just want to commend you. I appreciate the fact that when there were questions asking for clarification, that you directly went to EPA to get their interpretation and clarification, so that we weren't trying to play middleman there, that it was great to be able to see that response directly from EPA. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions? Marcy?
A bit of a procedural one in the Paper Council comment that they will continue to work with us. Is that correct?
Yes. We pass this approval. If we receive approval today, they've asked that we continue to conversate with them about specifics and the language that we're proposing. And if any changes at all were considered, during the legislative review period, we would bring that back to this board for, again, approval. We're really close. I don't anticipate major changes that clarify for their members. But again, if we make any changes beyond what is in the package today, we bring that back to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Doug, I see a hand up on yours. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chairman. So, and thanks for the briefing to staff there. I appreciate it. It helped a lot. Just more comments, I think, similar to what Marcy said, that the Paper Council, being part of the team that worked on the revisions, still have some comments or concerns left out there, but I understand the response to her question kind of clears up my concern as well. The other comment I had was the amount of time we spend between updates, and I know this is a large regulatory program, but in comparison, my familiarity is more with water quality, and in water quality arena and standards, there's triennial reviews where we don't let gaps become this large before we're updating things. And I'm just wondering, my comment is, with AIR program, that there ought to be some mechanism for us to check in on those before we get too far down the road to keep up with the regulatory changes that the feds are making. So there were just a couple comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Hearing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
I would move approval.
Robin moves approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Patty. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Good job.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, item 4B. Request the board approves the statement of scope for Board Order WA 824 and Emergency Board Order WA 724E. And approve the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting chapters NR 500 and 520 to provide an alternative method for a municipality to establish proof of financial responsibility required for a solid waste disposal facility. Michael Schmidt, Business Support and IT Section Manager.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Smith. Good morning, Assistant Deputy Secretary Aquino and members of the board. My name is Michael Schmidt. As Chair Smith said, I'm the Business Support and IT Section Manager with the Waste and Materials Management Program. I'm here today requesting the approval of the statement of scope for those board orders mentioned previously in regards to providing this alternative method for municipality to establish proof of financial responsibility for solid waste disposal facilities. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates that we are at the very beginning of our rulemaking process. In fact, we haven't really started anything at this point. The purpose of the scope statement stage of this rulemaking process, where we currently are, is to determine first whether rulemaking should occur, and second, whether the scope of the rule, what the scope of the rule should encompass. And what we include and don't include in the scope statement is important because that will ultimately set our sideboards for what can be revised during the rulemaking process. Therefore, today we are just asking for input whether the scope is appropriate for our efforts. And then throughout this rule revision process, there will be future opportunities for more input on the content of specific details of the rule. Next slide, please. The DNR was directed by the 2023 Wisconsin Act 107 to conduct rulemaking, and the requirements relating to an alternative method of establishing owner financial responsibility, or OFR as we call it, at municipally owned solid waste disposal facilities. OFR, it's important to just note, OFR ensures that a landfill owner has sufficient funds set aside to conduct closure activities or any required long-term care activities that are necessary for a given facility. Next slide, please. Act 107 in this rulemaking will allow the municipally owned solid waste disposal sites to satisfy their OFR using a financial test that's very similar to what we currently allow for a private entity through their net worth test. This rule would further define parameters for what is an acceptable alternative method, and this would be guided by existing federal code and state law. Next slide, please. So we did conduct a preliminary public hearing on the statement of scope. It was on June 8th. We have not made any changes to the scope based on the comments. The majority of the comments that we did receive were focused primarily on rule elements. So today we're just requesting that the Natural Resources Board approve the scope statement to begin rule writing, with emergency rules expected for the end of 2024. Next slide. Just want to say thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve?
I will move to approve the scope statement.
Paul moves approval. Do we have a second?
I would second.
Robin seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
You could check with Deb.
We can. Deb, Dasso, are you still on? I didn't hear your voice on the last vote.
I voted aye.
Okay, thank you. Just checking to make sure we didn't lose you.
Make sure I'm still here. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 4C. Request the board approves the statement of scope for emergency board order WM 11-24E and board order WM 12-24. And conditionally approve the public hearing notice for WM 12-23 and notice of submittal of the proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting chapter NR 10 related to revising white-tailed deer management unit boundaries. Scott Carroll, Wildlife Regulation Policy Specialist. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith, Assistant Deputy Secretary Keno, and members of the board. I am Scott Carroll from Bureau of Wildlife Management, and we're here today to seek approval of the scope statement of WM 1224. So just as kind of a reminder where we are in the process, this is the first time this scope statement has come before the board. So this would allow us to begin rule writing. Sometimes our scope statements are required to hold a preliminary public hearing by the Joint Committee for Review of Administrative Rules. No such request was made for this scope statement, so we haven't brought this topic before the board before today. So allowing us to move forward with a scope statement will allow us to begin rule drafting if one is necessary, and then we would then come back for a public hearing and then adoption later on, or board action on a proposed emergency rule and permanent rule. So is this working now? Thank you. So the department is beginning to undergo a deer management unit review. We do this semi-regularly, and this is the time where we're going to start a new one. So what we're doing is we are focusing, or the department intends to focus this review on three things. And as you can see from the map, so our DMUs, our deer management units, are county-based. And then we have zones, which are the darker line of that map. And then we have our metro subunits, which are units that are around our larger, more populated areas, which have a little bit more lax regulations for hunting and bag limits, so that we encourage harvest in areas where there's, where there's issues between in our more populated areas. And so what we intend to do with this review is focus on a couple of items, specifically our northern forest DMUs. So currently they're county-based. We're considering changing them up a little bit. We've heard desire to go back to something that's more habitat-based. So we're intending to have a discussion about what our northern forest DMUs would look like. Additionally, we're looking at potential zone boundary adjustments, particularly around the central forest zone, which is something that we've, again, heard in previous discussion with CDACs and other user groups about potentially in that central forest zone, which I don't know if I probably bumped it, but that it's that highlighted area, or that darker area in the central part of the state, that is our central forest zone. We're looking at potentially amending that boundary. And then finally, we do this somewhat regularly, but we've heard a desire to expand our metro subunits, and those again are those crosshatched areas that are around kind of our more populated areas of the state. So that's what this review intends to consider, and that what if we did bring back a rule, it would focus on those three areas. As for next steps, so should a scope statement be approved, we intend on opening up public comment, or really seeking public input on what potential boundary adjustment could be. So we would begin, consulting with tribal members, CDACs, Conservation Congress. So we would kind of start the process by offering a couple of options, and then getting the feedback back. And then if something is, we can come up with a solution, we intend on having a public hearing and then bringing a emergency rule and permanent rule back to the board. We're hoping in February of 25. That would allow us to have the new zones in place for our spring CDAC meetings, and then having it then ready to go for our fall 25 seasons, should a boundary change be appropriate. So that's our plans and the next steps. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the scope statement.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions from the board? Comments?
I have a question.
Marcy?
We received a letter from a resident of Door County. So in the map that you showed, the Door County would not be considered.
It's not a, what we're anticipating reviewing at this time. It would just focus more on the northern forest DMUs. And, I believe Doors in the central farmland.
What are we gonna do if people ask to be considered that are outside of the northern?
Also, any rule review would obviously be brought to the board, and it's up to the board to, it's once we bring it to the board, that it's in your hands. Then you could approve it, reject it, amend it. So, but it just what we intend to focus on is not the central farmland this time during this review process.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Doug's got a hand up. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the presentation, Scott. So in your scope statement, and I understand tribal consultation will be part of this, but in your statement of scope under number 6, your description of all entities that may be impacted by the rule, in there you only list Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. I think you should add tribal resource entities or tribal governments to that. As you know, Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission only manages for a handful of the Chippewa bands that are related to the LCO White decision. Several other tribes aren't part of Glyphwick, and they're not mentioned in that description of entities that may be impacted by the rule. So, some of us, although have zero quotas, some tribes, although have zero quotas, the boundaries are still managed and still enforced. So these changes could impact those things just in the scope. We should identify that.
Oh, thank you. And again, that the anticipated impacts, we didn't mean to overlook the other tribes. It was just, we kind of have to, there's a lot of people, or not, I wouldn't say that. So we have to kind of make an educated guess about who could be impacted. Obviously, we can't list every single group, but like the tribal thing was just an oversight. And we did send out a notification to the tribes when the scope statement did become public record. Our tribal liaison sent out a notification to all the tribes. We do tend to engage with the tribes and to have a consultation with them directly about this. So we're not just focusing on Glyphwick. It'll be all, we'll be getting the impact from all the tribes on this.
Yeah, thanks.
Robin?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this is really important. We've heard a lot of feedback about concerns, especially up north. And I think this is a step forward in terms of trying to address and trying to manage the population there in as most ecologically beneficial way as we can. So, and I appreciate the fact that you're moving forward for an emergency rule so that we can have things in place for next season. So thank you for all your work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments? Hearing none. Time for a motion if somebody's ready.
Is it my turn? I'll move approval.
Marcy moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Paul seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 4D. Request the board approves the statement of scope for board order DG 0424 and conditionally approves the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting chapter NR 809 related to updating lead and copper requirements for public drinking water in order to be consistent with revised federal requirements. Ann Harakatur, Lead and Copper Section Manager. Ann, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Smith, and thank you to the board and to Deputy Secretary Aquino. My name is Ann Harakatur. I'm the manager of the Lead and Copper Section in the Drinking and Groundwater Bureau. and I'm here today to request approval of the scope statement to update NR 809 as it relates to control of lead and copper in drinking water. Okay, so as others who have gone before me have said, we are at the very beginning of the rule-making process, and today we're requesting approval of the scope, asking the NRB to tell us that it's okay to proceed with rulemaking and that the sideboards we've set in place about the scope of the rulemaking that will proceed is approved by the board. So the objective of the proposed rulemaking is to update NR 809 to be consistent with recent revisions to federal regulations controlling lead and copper in public drinking water. Specifically, there were the lead and copper rule revisions that went into effect in 2021. And then there are the federal lead and copper rule improvements, which were proposed this year and are expected to be finalized in October. And so the proposed scope statement would incorporate both of those federal rule updates. So some of the key areas that we expect to be addressed in the rulemaking are requirements for monitoring for lead and copper, requirements for corrosion control treatment, lead service line inventory and replacement requirements, public education and outreach requirements, and monitoring requirements in schools and childcare facilities. We did have a preliminary public hearing. We had one person speak in favor of the scope statement and 3 people submit written comments in favor. We did not have any speaking or submitting comments in opposition. And so with that, that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
We have no public appearances. Are there questions or comments from the board? Robin?
Can you just briefly go over the timeline for when, like you're gonna have, develop the role, involve, stakeholders, have a, public input? What's your expectation for when it would be back to us for review?
Well, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but so once we have approval of the scope statement, then we can begin identifying stakeholders and engaging stakeholders. So we haven't been able to begin that in advance of getting the scope statement approved, but we do anticipate that starting this fall, we will begin engaging stakeholders, and then we will use the input from the stakeholder to begin rulemaking. Again, we will have some significant sideboards on what we can and can't include in our rulemaking, because we do need to be at least as restrictive as the federal requirements. Otherwise, we wouldn't maintain our primacy. And that's one thing I should have mentioned during my presentation, is that these federal requirements will apply to Wisconsin public water systems, regardless of whether we adopt these rules or not. It's just simply that if we don't adopt them, then EPA would enforce them rather than the DNR. So for the details of the schedule, I would have to refer to the spreadsheet that our rule coordinator makes for us, and I don't have that at my fingertips.
My main concern was typically, you know, a rule process can take 36 months.
Yes.
And I was concerned about the federal requirements and the safety that they provide. But you just mentioned that as when they get approved, we're going to have to comply with them.
Yeah, so for example, the compliance date for the 2021 regulations is this year. And so we are already administering those requirements through a primacy extension agreement with EPA. And if any water systems don't comply with it, then EPA takes enforcement action, since we haven't updated our rules. So in this interim period, that's what will happen, is that we will administer the rules, and any systems that don't comply, EPA will take enforcement action. So that's the way it'll be until we adopt the final rule. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Marcy?
More of a comment. Thank you, and thank you for the good work that you do. I learned during my briefing that there's an important inventory going on in the state on these issues. So I put a reminder on my February calendar that I'm going to ask for a copy of that report. in the future. And I hope we can have them back to show what a great impact this has, and the health benefits and everything that's going on in this arena. It reminds me of our previous board member, Sharon Adams, and the importance she put on this issue. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Marcy. The inventories are due by this October, and it will take us probably until beginning of next year to review all those inventories and get them uploaded into a lead service line tracking database that our IT folks have developed. And so we should be able to share the results of that inventory info by early next year. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I guess we're ready for a motion.
I move approval.
I keep expecting Doug or Deb to jump in.
Second.
Okay, where did the primary one come from?
Robin.
From Robin.
Robin.
Okay, thank you. Robin moves approval and Paul seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
Ann.
much.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, the elk management plan and adoption of the rule. First item is item E. Request approval of Wisconsin elk management plan. And we have Sam Jonas, Species Section Supervisor. Welcome, Sam.
Good morning. Morning, Chair Smith, Assistant Deputy Secretary Keno, and members of the board. My name is Sam Jonas. I'm the Species Section Supervisor for our wildlife program, and I'm here this morning to present to you the Wisconsin Elk Management Plan for 2024 and 2034. I stand before you excited to present this plan. It is a long time coming for us. We began work on this updated plan in 2018, believe it or not. So it's about 6 years in the making, and 90% of the plan that was presented or will be presented today for approval was completed in this time period of 2018 to 2020. It was presented to the board. Some of you may remember in April of 2021 and also in May in 2021, and was tabled. And I would say since that point, about that 10% of that plan has been worked on. And I'm proud to share today the work that the department has done in response to that and concerns that we have heard over the years. So part of the early plan development, we launched a public survey, awareness survey, and found that while the majority of Wisconsinites are in support of elk in the state of Wisconsin, again, we did hear some concerns and work to address those. One of the main concerns that we heard is we have an elk advisory committee for the state and the DNR, and we added some stakeholders. We heard NRB and some stakeholders' complaints that we may be lacking some voices at our elk committee advisory team members, and we have added 4 members to that committee since 2021, one being the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association, Wisconsin County Forest Association, the Farm Bureau, and then also USDA APHIS, which is Wildlife Services. We have since held several elk advisory committees since that 2021 with those members, and while there have been disagreements, unanimously has reached support in this plan that is put forth today. So within the plan, I wanted to highlight the overall goal within elk in Wisconsin, and that is to maintain a healthy, robust, and sustainable elk population that provides the ecological, social, economic, and cultural benefits of elk while minimizing elk-human conflicts in Wisconsin. And beneath our objectives, A through E, I'm not going to read each of those. However, it's important to know that those objectives are there to ultimately reach the goal of the elk management plan. And then also, there's a lot within the plan, and I'm not going to share it on the PowerPoint, but there's implementation strategies within each of those objectives that will help hold the department accountable annually to reach that overall goal within the elk management plan, which I think is a great thing that we have within our plan. So the next couple of slides here, I'm going to overview the main changes, again, with that 10% of that plan that we kind of addressed moving forward. In the first change that is recommended within the plan is naming Clam Lake Elk Range to Northern Elk Management Zone and the Black River Elk Range to Central Elk Management Zone. A simple naming change for consistency and understanding for our public. And then also a hunting season framework change. Currently, there is a split season for elk hunting. It runs from October 12th to November 10th and December 12th through December 20th. This proposal would recommend a Saturday nearest October 15th through the Sunday nearest December 15th. This will allow for consistency in season and less complexity and understanding for one consistent elk hunting season. Another recommendation within the plan is focused on the Northern Elk Management Zone, where we are asking to add an additional 7 square miles of private land that is currently occupied by elk. So that red line on the map that you're seeing is the current elk hunting unit and elk hunting management zone. And we are asking to extend to the south there 7 square miles, which will line with County Highway J and County Highway I. The purpose for this is that, as I said, elk are currently using that area outside of the elk management unit and zone. And this is going to offer the department the greatest flexibility to offer the most help and assistance with landowners in that area for concerns of agricultural damage, and we can target harvest on current elk use in that area. Moving to the Central Elk Management Zone, this is a larger extension. We're asking to add an additional 115 square miles in Jackson County. This is to include large blocks of public land to offer greater access for elk hunting opportunities to the general public. And then it also includes Ho-Chunk Nation land. Again, expanding elk management to include where elk is currently distributed and being used. This is not an expansion of elk. This is an expansion of elk management, which is going to afford the department the greatest flexibility to maximize the tools to address any landowner concerns or agricultural concerns that we have in those areas. This also is going to allow for increased opportunity for habitat management within that elk management zone to keep elk where we'd like them the most in areas of fewer conflict. And then a statewide look here at both the northern and central zones. This also includes our elk hunting units, which is a new addition for adoption within this plan. We're asking to establish elk hunting units within the adjacent elk management zones. There are subunits 1 through 14. Unit 15 is all areas outside of those elk management zones. This is going to allow for quota allocations to be set to address localized management needs. And I really want to hit home that this allows us to target harvest in areas where we may get potential concerns for higher conflict areas. And then also, in addition, benefit to this is these subunits are going to allow us to distribute harvest on local bulls. Right now, how it's currently set up, you can apply for the Northern Elk Management Unit or the Central Elk Management Unit, and you could go anywhere within that unit and harvest a bull wherever you see fit. And, locals talk and people scout and they find out where it's easy to target certain bulls in certain areas, and they can focus in on a specific area like Clam Lake, for example, year after year. And that's something that we would like to spread out that harvest pressure on localized areas, and these subunits help us do that. Moving to the next slide, another change within the management plan is moving away from a numerical population goal to an adaptive population management approach. And the takeaway message here that I want to share is that the importance is a shift again away from the numerical population goal and an annual meeting with our elk advisory committee to take into consideration metrics each year and use this reference table as a guide and a starting point to guide conversations on what locals are seeing, what stakeholders are seeing, and so forth. So some of the metrics that the elk committee is going to be discussing annually and to take into consideration on elk harvest and other efforts are elk population trends, distribution of elk, agriculture damage levels, and economic impacts to agriculture crops, public support, hunter harvest success and satisfaction, annual elk mortality, economic benefit, scientific developments, and tribal engagement. This really is going to allow the department for the greatest social flexibility of any concerns we're hearing from year to year within elk management zones, and it's going to allow us for greatest possible acceptance of elk in the state of Wisconsin. Our public survey and stakeholder input from March 21 to April 20th of 2024. Our staff worked diligently with our public to gain feedback and input on our plan. We consulted with all 11 Wisconsin tribes, held 3 public open houses, 1 up north, 1 in the central area, and 1 virtually. We gathered all that public feedback on the draft plan and proposals. We also attended DNR Gliffwick Wildlife Committee meetings, incorporated stakeholder input, and we also canvassed and went door to door and talked to individuals one-on-one and heard their concerns or support for elk. Some of the changes that came from this public input and surveys that we put out, revisions to the elk management plan following the input period. There's a rule that was currently written. If you were out, say, as the picture indicates, feeding for birds, and an elk comes to that bird feeder, the rule proposal was written that that bird feeder would then need to be removed. Well, we sent that out and heard people didn't really like that. They don't want to have to remove their bird feeders. And so we heard them and we changed that language, simply removed from that language and added altered. So this is consistent with what is currently in rule with deer. It's the same rule that we have. And if you have an elk coming to your bird feeder, you simply need to move it where it's no longer accessible. And then again, furthermore, revisions to the elk plan. I think you have received in your testimony some concerns on agriculture. We acknowledge that, and we work with those individual stakeholders, landowners as well, and listen to them and added adoptions and changes and amendments to our plan to help address concerns that we are getting. And so some of those revisions that we made to the plan is we added language to consider additional compensation funding for crop damage will be important into the future. We also added language that states utilization and implementation of our damage program of elk shooting permits may be warranted. And then economic impacts on agriculture damage as a metric for adaptive management, as I previously mentioned in the adaptive management approach. With that, I will take any questions, and I just want to say I'm up here presenting the management plan, but a lot of the efforts and work were completed by our biologist Josh Spiegel and Christina Kazuski, who's our central elk biologist, and then Josh is our northern. And so I just wanted to make sure that they're recognized for a lot of their work. I said it started back in 2018, and they've done a lot of good work for us. So I want to recognize them publicly. So with that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We have some appearances today and we have some written comment that's come in, and I guess I'd ask the board if we can go to the appearances and hear the testimony and then come back to Sam with questions and comments.
I'll be here.
Stand by. Thank you, Sam. Okay, on our appearances, first we have Richard Kirchmeyer, Wisconsin Bowhunters Association. Welcome, Rich.
Morning, Chairman Smith, and long time no see.
Yeah.
I thank you, the Natural Resources Board, for giving me, Richard Kirkmeyer, President of Wisconsin Bowhunter Association, WHS DNR Liaison, the opportunity today to come before you inform you that Wisconsin Bow Hunters Association fully supports the proposed elk management plan as written and being presented to you today for consideration and for approval. I'd also like to thank each of you for your interest and dedication and natural resources for the great state of Wisconsin. The proposed elk management plan contains a ton of information, history, and goals that relate to the present and future management elk of here in the state. There are a number of points that I'd like to emphasize to you that I think are important to the future of elk management and are beneficial to elk, hunters, sightseers, and all interested in the future of elk. First, by dividing the two major elk management zones, the north and the central, into 15 smaller elk management zones, will allow the DNR to more closely monitor and manage the elk populations in each zone, so an overharvest of adult bulls does not occur and will not interfere with future breeding and future growth of our elk populations. Second, the DNR committee, elk committee, making a change from a numerical population goal numbers allows for more flexibility to manage elk depending on conflicts, nuisance, damage, ecological support, hunting, and viewing opportunities, along with the tourist businesses that occurs. One final piece of information that I'd like to emphasize is the elimination of the present split in the elk harvest season. By making one continuous season with no interruptions caused by the state's gun deer season, it creates more opportunity for a successful hunt and also provides for less confusion. As being directed a number of years ago, the department handed down a declaration, whatever, that every committee, DNR committee, should try to simplify rules. And this is one simplification going back to that original charge a number of years ago. And if I may add, as a Wisconsin Bow Hunters DNR liaison, I do sit on 5 different committees, along with alternate on 3 other committees. So I'm quite involved in the department. And I can, in my personal opinion, I do think that Josh, Scott, and Christina are very upfront about information, sharing information, and I really enjoy working with those 3. They operate a little bit different, and like I said, I'm not trying to demean anybody else, but the elk committee people are very upfront and good for us. And like this is the 3rd management plan that I've helped work on, the turkey, bear, and now the elk, and I think it is a very well-written management plan. I think it should be advisable to pass it. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Rich. Are there questions for Rich?
Thank you for serving on so many committees.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks, Rich. Our next appearance is J.D. Nichols, Jackson County Wildlife Fund. Welcome, J.D.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Smith, Assistant Deputy Secretary Aquino, board members. It's a pleasure to be here today. I also have with me fellow Jackson County Wildlife Fund board member Al Jacobson. As you said, my name's J.D. Nichols. I'm from Black River Falls, and I'm a member of the Jackson County Wildlife Fund, or JCWF. And it's that organization I'm here as a representative of today. Brief history of who we are. We were founded in 1987, a group of conservation-minded sportsmen from the Jackson County area with the idea to raise funds and keep them within our county. The group has grown over the years, and we currently have 325 members. Many years ago, I believe it was in the late 90s, we first started talking about the possibility of reintroducing elk to the Central Forest region of Jackson County. Through the years, we met with many obstacles and setbacks. As things changed and the challenges grew, we partnered with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the Ho-Chunk Nation, Jackson County Forestry and Parks, and the Wisconsin DNR to finally bring elk back to the Central Forest. To date, we have invested approximately $70,000 in the elk program. Though that number pales in comparison to the amounts spent by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and the Ho-Chunk Nation, It's a huge amount for an organization of our size. I bring this up only to show the amount of time, effort, and money that our organization has put into the elk herd. We understand that there have been some issues with the elk herd and that some changes have been required and that other changes are proposed in the new elk management plan. We believe that the expanded elk range and the elk hunting management units, along with the proposed density numbers, will allow for effective management of the herd. The elk have adapted well to the area. In some ways, they've reacted as expected, and in other ways, they have not. This just shows that wild animals are not always predictable and that plans need to be adjusted as we learn from these magnificent creatures. On paper, a 10-year plan can look great. However, even the best plans may need to be adjusted from time to time. And I guess that's why we're here today. We feel that the elk management team has done a very good job in writing the new 10-year plan, and they have adequately addressed the concerns presented. I am here today as a representative of our 325 members to show our approval of the plan as written. And we thank you for your time and for the opportunity to address the Natural Resources Board. The Jackson County Wildlife Fund thereby respectfully ask that you pass the Wisconsin Elk Management Plan 2024 to 2034 so that they can be here long after we're gone. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Are there any questions, comments from the board? Thank you. Our next appearance is from Brandon Bloor, Whole Chunk Nation DNR. Brandon, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm Brandon Bloor. I'm the Executive Director of the Whole Chunk Nation DNR. I'm speaking today in support of the Wisconsin Elk Management Plan as it is currently written. The goal of elk management, as it's stated in the plan, aligns well with the priorities of the Whole Chunk Nation in regards for elk management. The cultural benefits of elk is an area that is of particular interest to the Whole Chunk people, and it's stated there in that goal that that is kind of a priority there. A few other specific areas of the plan that are particularly favorable are the utilization of the adaptive management as a framework to manage elk populations. This approach can utilize metrics that are important to the Whole Chunk Nation, such as the tribal engagement metric. The Whole Chunk Nation DNR also values the importance of metrics such as the impact to agricultural crops and conflict trends. The adaptive management approach will be very beneficial for managing elk populations based on these and other metrics. This change alleviates concerns that were brought to the Elk Management Committee by Ho Chunk government about previously proposed population goals. Another favorable aspect is the increase in the size of the central elk management zone. This expansion includes multiple land parcels owned by the Ho Chunk Nation. Some of these properties are currently utilized by elk, and we have multiple habitat improvement projects that are planned or currently in progress or have been completed. The expansion of the zone boundary also includes large blocks of public land, which will increase elk hunting opportunity for both tribal members as well as the general public. The Ho Chunk Nation is committed to seeing elk management efforts continue as is outlined in the Wisconsin Elk Management Plan. The Ho Chunk DNR has pretty much made a big commitment to continuing this partnership and efforts for elk management by making elk management a priority in our long-term strategic plan, which will dedicate both staff and other resources towards this continued effort and work. So in conclusion, I am in full support of the plan as it is written and hope to see it approved. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Are there questions of Brandon? All right, thank you. I also want to note on the record, we've received considerable written input on this decision item as well. We have 8 contacts Four of them in support, including Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, who wanted to appear today to provide testimony, but unable to do that. So I just wanted to note their strong written support for this. We have one comment suggesting we move the elk season earlier to take advantage of the rut when elk are more mobile and more accessible to hunters. And we had two comments that have come out of the town of Knapp that were very strongly worded and very compelling, talking about the egg damage. And the points they made were there were some items of damage that weren't included under the damage payments, and they encouraged a renewed effort to take a look at the broader concept of elk damage and to find the attention and the resources to deal with it better in the future. So it's just kind of a quick summary of the written input that's come in and has been available to all the board members. With that, let's move on to questions. Sam, you want to come up and see if we've got questions or comments from the board? Patty?
I don't have a question. I just really want to say this really reflects a lot of work put in collaborative with a lot of different partners. And it just kind of proves how collaboration and working together for a good product does work. And it appears that we've met most of the goals, and that's you guys, everyone who's been involved should be very proud of this.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Paul?
Yesterday we were at the Barrens, and it was enthusiastically suggested that it was habitat suitable for elk. If they expand there, that's not in the it's not in the northern elk range. How would you manage if those elk from Minnesota swim across the river? How would you expand your management area into that? It's not described in this plan, but how would you handle that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Paul. So we currently do have transient elk that leave the boundaries. As we all know, wildlife do not care where humans draw the line, and they certainly walk outside of those lines. We have ways to address those concerns and have done so. In the past, we actually have trapped and relocated elk back into areas. I would also like to reference the substance of this entire plan related to the habitat work that's going to be conducted within the elk management zone. And the intent and reason for doing so is to make that the most attractive area for elk to be. Elk also have, relatively small home ranges, averaging from 5 to 15 square miles. And so they're not large travelers, but can be. Certainly bulls during rutting season can go distances to find cows, but normally return back to their harem. And then also, we have on the map, we have an exterior zone that's identified within the map called Zone 15, which can also be enacted on for a hunting season if needed. And so I again would like to pull us back to the beauty of the adaptive management approach, and when and if elk do swim across that river and take up residence in Wisconsin, that's where the elk committee is going to meet and discuss with all tribal members, all members of that committee, and figure out a plan moving forward on how we can address it. It's our job to ensure that they have tools available to them to address that concern.
Doug, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. So I just wanted to say that I do appreciate the work that's been done on this plan. It's a great plan. I'm going to support this. I think it's important that we have good plans. I've said this in our past involvement with plans that have been presented here, that we can't have management without solid plans. So it's important to have them. The important part of this to me is the adaptive management part. I really am a proponent of adaptive management. See, in tribal management, for the most part, is regularly adaptive management, and especially having tribes input on the committee, and getting that traditional ecological knowledge portion of that input to write this plan is important. The other part that I did notice though on the comments and in reviewing them, that there were a lot of comments regarding tribal harvests and tribal rights. And on page 5 in your cover memo, you put DNR's response to commonly stated concerns are as follows, and you listed 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 main areas of commonly stated concerns, but you didn't have anything regarding the tribal comments. I thought there was enough in my review of those comments that we should develop one. I mean, in the chapter where you talk about tribes within the plan, there's a good paragraph in there that talks about LCO in Voight case and how that relationship works with the state. Obviously, Voight Task Force and the state, work together closely. That quota allocation that the tribes that have those ceded territory rights have a right to. I think that explanation in the plan is a good one. It should be added to your list of responses to commonly stated concerns, just in my opinion. But again, I like the plan and I'm going to support this. So thanks for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other questions, comments from the board? Paul?
I guess, as a farmer, I know how, deer can, we have herds of deer that, come and, graze on our crops. And, what I'm surprised at is the, appraised elk damages, listed, there's very little listed as far as, impact on alfalfa and hay and, haylage. The amount is quite small compared to corn. Is there a reason that it's hard to quantify those losses, or is there just not many claims that involve those? It seems that a herd of elk out in the middle of a hayfield would cause more damage than is reflected in this table.
Yeah, thanks for that. We, first, elk we have found prefer row crops. And so we've seen most of the damage and claims within our row crop producers. Not to say that elk certainly are not in alfalfa fields. To the specifics on quantifying or measurements of alfalfa damage, we rely on USDA Wildlife Services and their technicians to go out and review and calculate the damage that's occurring on alfalfa. Any more specifics into that, we do have our damage specialist here to get into more of the details on what we're seeing on specifics on claims with alfalfa. But as you're seeing in the results, I think is indication of preference on elk to row crops, less so on alfalfa. And you're seeing that in fewer claims for alfalfa. So I'm not sure if I totally went and answered your question, but if you're looking for more, I'm happy to call up Brad if you see fit.
Is it a lack of claims in alfalfa, or just a lack of being able to measure how much loss there is in a field of grass or alfalfa?
It's a little bit of both. It is more difficult to measure elk damage on alfalfa than it is, say, row crops. But there are fewer claims on alfalfa.
Well, I guess, so if a farmer files a damage claim, is he then opening up his farm for a hunting season, open hunting on his land?
So currently our state law is listed, and because the damage program is funded through licensed dollars, one of the laws within the damage program is that if you are going to be compensated for elk damage and you are within an elk management zone and hunting season, you are then required to open up your property for elk hunting. We have had farmers do this in the north where we've had elk hunting seasons in the past. This is the first year where we're going to have a central elk management zone hunt. And we've had 4 successful hunters on damage producers. So we've had bulls taken off of those farms in the north where they've opened it up. part of the requirement when you are successful in drawing a permit is you have a class where you're educated on elk hunting and then you're also provided a list of those areas where hunters are able to go and access those properties that are enrolled in the damage program. So long story short, yes, you're required to open your property for hunting.
You can see that a farmer that is also an avid hunter would be reluctant to participate in it if he has to open up his land. It's a little bit of a quandary that it puts a farmer that's trying to make a living off of his land and also enjoy the fruits of it.
Yep.
But I understand it's a state statute, so
Yep.
that's
I can
not in your
empathize with that.
purveyance.
Yeah, correct.
Other questions or comments? Robin?
So I apologize because I probably should have asked this when we had our briefing, but with the consolidation of the timing for the hunt, do you anticipate any conflicts between deer hunters and elk hunters? And can you just clarify that? Because there's so few elk permits issued, there might be some incentive for deer hunters to maybe accidentally identify an elk instead of a deer. Is that a concern at all, or are they such different markings and sizes and things like that that it's really not legitimate to say there was some confusion as to what you were shooting?
Well, there certainly can be confusion. I mean, in anything. We actually every year, one of the things that we do on our social media is try and educate our deer hunters on watch out for elk. Here's what they look like. Make sure of your target and what's beyond, all the safety tips. So we certainly stress education first and foremost on what you're targeting. The original split was created of potential concern for conflict of deer hunters and other user groups. And time has since passed. There are such few permits right now that are being issued that, we've heard through the surveys that we've issued that there's no longer really that concern. We've also looked at Western states that have continuous seasons through their firearm seasons and are not seeing those concerns.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Marcy?
Yes, thank you and thank the whole team for the briefing and the work that's gone into the plan. I can sympathize with a 6-year project. So let's tick through some of those concerns that we heard in the written comments. That how was it determined that the September during the rut would not be an option for the hunting season?
So the season dates are set based on elk behavior and breeding activity. And because we're still, moving towards increasing the elk population, we wanted to maintain and ensuring that breeding activity completes prior to harvesting mature bulls out of that population.
Okay, thank you. And then those concerns out of the town of Knapp, any special efforts going to be taken to alleviate that?
Absolutely. We are planning, the department is committed to continuing to work with those concerns. We actually have a meeting planned on August 22nd to meet with individuals in those areas to work together on those concerns. We've also held previous individual meetings in the town of Knapp, 2 separate meetings to hear their concerns and address them where we can within our authority. Christina also was making phone calls before the board to folks that are writing in, and they're good friends and they know each other and they talk to each other quite a lot. So we're committed to continuing moving forward and working together.
Okay, good to hear. And on a separate note, obviously CWD is always of concern, and I believe Jackson County now has positive in the whitetails. Anything going to change as far as CWD testing, or is it just the automatic, whether it's a roadkill or anything?
Yep, automatically we're going to be continuing to get them tested and monitored. To date, we do not have any CWD positive elk. However, that's not to say that that couldn't happen. They're susceptible to the disease as well. And currently the plan is to continue to monitor how that's affecting the elk population.
Okay, awesome. Last one, promise. The costs are significant, as is the revenue generated. So, you know, it feels like one of those things that could really come into question within the next 10 years if something happens that the interest wanes or you know, these very dedicated and thoughtful partners have issues. So what would be the process if there's either a revenue decline or something that has to be adjusted? Can we open it back? Can we open the management plan back up when they're said to be a 10-year plan that's not stagnant, correct?
Yeah, correct. Not stagnant. Certainly open to amendments. Currently, you know, elk is funded primarily through Pittman-Robertson, the tax on sporting equipment, and then also our SEG funds, which is currently being looked at on a downward trend. Roughly, you know, staff time, habitat work, at the end of the day, we're roughly spending around $500 a year for management on elk, and about $150,000 for research. So, you know, that's not solely falling on the department. We utilize a lot of partners, RMEF being one of them. Ho-Chunk, you know, Brandon spoke to the work that they're doing and providing towards elk management. And we're consistently and constantly seeking additional funding revenues to help support the elk management program. I mentioned earlier, one of the larger or potentially larger costs is elk damage. That is funded by the purchase of deer hunting license, as well as elk hunting permits. And so it is sort of self-funded in that sense of application dollars are earmarked for elk management. And, you know, again, long story short, Marcy, is we're going to have to continue to be creative and look for additional funding revenues to help support the elk management in Wisconsin. And I'm confident that we'll be able to do so even in the midst of conversations around decreasing segregated funds.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I think given the compliments of working with the staff and the advisory committee, I think you definitely have the support. And again, just congratulations and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? I have one, Marcy. Just bear with me for a minute. I want to circle back to the town and app letters that we had, the two of them. I found them very specific and very compelling. People that had experience with elk damage and with the program, and they didn't really come out and say, get rid of the elk. They just said, we need more attention, we need more resources, we need more effort on the damage situation. And I think this plan is a great step forward. I think it sets up some management goals and boundaries that will give the department the flexibility to do that. I guess my question to you is, Sam, are there other things in the way that would prevent you from putting a strong effort towards the egg damage situation? Is it a question of authority? Have you got the resources? Is there any obstacles there that the board should be aware of?
One of the two greatest frustration points that we're continuing to hear that it feels we can't reach resolution on is the compensation limit that certain producers are seeing on crops. Within the damage program, the compensation limit is capped at $10,000. And so, rightfully so, individuals are frustrated if they have $30,000 worth of appraised damages and only can be paid $10,000. That currently is set within state statute. And then also, the other frustration point, which was brought up by Paul, is the requirement to open up your property to public hunting if you're enrolled in that program. And again, that's not within the scope of the department to change that authority. I would say Paul or Bill, excuse me, those are probably the two largest areas of issues that we're facing that you know, the department doesn't really have authority to act on. I will say, you know, meeting with individuals, particularly again with the town of Nat, we're constantly and consistently working with them on the entire toolbox that we have available to them. It's not just going to be one trick pony. There's not one simple answer to address this concern. There's lots of different things that our damage program is capable of handing out. Fencing, temporary fencing, cost sharing for permanent fencing, lure crops, which is a new thing that we're trying, which we've seen to see some success, diverting elk away from areas where they're focusing in on harvest. And, you know, elk are relatively new to this area. It hasn't been that long that they've been brought to that area. And it's just with change, we're going to have to continue to work with them. And as mentioned in previous comments, you know, we're just going to have to maintain flexible and adaptable and take them on as they come. And I'm confident with the team that we have and the elk committee and, you know, Wisconsinites that we're able to reach resolution.
Well, as I said, I think the plan before us is a step forward to lay out a program that gives you more tools and more flexibility, and I'm very much in favor of all that. And I'm encouraged by your recognition of the egg damage as a challenging issue and one that you're committed to work hard on and look for opportunities to take some of those obstacles out of the way and make it easier and more effective in trying to address elk damage on private land.
Absolutely. Like we said, we've got a meeting on the 22nd and we're excited to move forward.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions? With that, I'd have to ask for a motion.
I'll make that motion, Chairman. I'll move to approve the elk management plan.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve from Doug. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Patty seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Say no. Motion carries.
Thank you very much,
Sam. And thanks to everybody in the public for your input on this very important decision. We're right at break time. We have the accompanying rule package that goes with this. It would be efficient to probably cover that while we're still fresh on the plan. But I defer to the board. Do you need to take a break right now, or should we take the rule package and then break?
Let's take the roll package.
Okay, we'll continue on into item 4F, request the board adopt WM 0523 proposed rules affecting chapter NR 10 related to elk management. Welcome back, Scott Carroll.
Thank you. So again, Scott Carroll, Wildlife Regulation Policy Specialist. Sam just did a great job outlining the elk management plan, which the board just approved. What I have before you today is a rule that would implement the specific items of the elk management plan that necessitate a change in administrative code. So just as a reminder, we're at the rule adoption phase. The board approved the scope statement for this rule at the December 2023 meeting. We held a public hearing in June of 2024, which the input that was received at the public hearing is outlined in the background memo that was attached to the green sheet. So we're here today for final rule adoption of the rule related to the elk management plan. So my presentation is very repetitive to the things that Sam outlined in his presentation. So I'm just going to briefly go over the specific items of the elk management plan that we have outlined in this rule. As Sam mentioned, we changed the elk management zone boundaries and names. So that'll be the northern zone, the central zone, and within those zones, we have subunits. And the subunits are meant to direct hunter pressure so that specific, elk herds aren't getting over targeted by hunters. So in the future, as more and more permits get issued, we can spread hunters out so they're not just going to one single area, running into each other, and then targeting a specific elk herd. So it's going to be beneficial to not only our elk, but our hunters as well, who are lucky enough to be issued a permit. So we're changing the elk management zone boundaries and names. Again, elk tags will be unit specific, as I just outlined. It creates a single continuous elk season, as Sam mentioned, so we're not going to have that split again during over the 9-day gun deer season. I will supplement to what Sam added. The start date for the elk season is mandated in statute, so we're not allowed to have an opener earlier than the Saturday nearest October 15th. So in order to have an earlier elk season, we'd have to have a change in statutory language. So we're now moving to adaptive management of elk. The rule currently has it has a numeric population goal. It still has all these things that are more designed for a numeric population goal, whether it's license issuance or success rates. So we then change all that in the code to implement the objective management that we are now implementing for elk. So again, changes elk quota, moves from a formula to metrics identified in the plan. So we're not being we're being more flexible with how we're issuing tags based off of the items that were just approved in the elk management plan, and it refers back to the metrics in the plan. The rule will now refer back. And then finally, as Sam mentioned, currently in administrative code, if a deer, and this is for feeding for birds and small mammals within a certain distance of a home, it's an exemption to our beating and feeding bans for deer. But if currently in code, if deer are accessing that feed, they have to alter it. We do the same thing now for elk. So if elk are accessing these feed that are meant to be for, squirrels or other small mammals or birds, we just ask that, or they're now required to move it so that elk can no longer access it. So that is the essence of the rule. Again, I went forward kind of succinctly, but I thought, Sam went through a lot of this, so it's, saving a little bit of time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about the specifics in the rule.
Are there questions or comments for Scott? We have no appearances or written input on this specific item. All that came in under the plan. Marcy.
Not specific to the rule, but as these things move over to the legislature, does the department share the concerns about that $10,000 limit? Or does the town and local residents have to bring up that concern with their legislators specifically?
There was a bill in the last session that would have raised the cap. I believe we did provide informational testimony on it. We likely would again if that would come up. If there are any concerns or we do have meetings with legislatures, we can bring up that issue, but we would always encourage if it's something that has to be addressed by the legislature, that we have the individuals most affected by it reach out to their local legislators. We don't do a lot of advocating across the street, but if it is something that is brought up, we can mention that it's things we've heard during the process of developing the plan.
Okay, thank
you. And it is specifically mentioned in the plan that, we've heard these concerns of that, we just wanted to make sure they were listed in the plan.
I would make the motion to approve the rule.
Marcy moves to approve the rule package. Do we have a second?
I would second.
Robin seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Hearing none, motion carries. You got a plan and a rule. Thank you, Scott. With that, the board will take their morning break for the next 15 minutes, and we will come back into session at about 10:25, and we'll take up item 5, open forum. Thank you. All right, we got 10:25. Yeah, it's a boomer. Board will come back into session. It's 10:25 and our break is over. And we'll start with item 5, open forum. We have 5 appearances scheduled under open forum, and the first appearance is Mr. Dave Clausen from Amory, and he's here to speak on lead in venison. Dave, welcome.
Good morning, Secretary Smith, Natural Resources Board, and to the Assistant Deputy Secretary, wherever he is. So I'm going to speak on lead in venison. The Safely Eating Wild Game page on the DNR's website contains the following sentence. Lead particles found in hunter-harvested venison have not been linked to any illnesses. The reason lead in hunter-harvested venison has not been linked to any illnesses is because those experiments have not been done. Federal regulations and medical ethics prohibit feeding a toxin to children just to see if they get sick. That sentence is misleading and falsely conveys to consumers that the lead in that tasty meat is somehow less toxic than had it come from some other place. The reality is there's no research that indicating that any amount of lead is not toxic to the human body. 2008 studies from Wisconsin indicated that 15% of commercially processed venison was contaminated with lead at a mean concentration of 15.9 milligrams parts per million. Hunter processed samples tested positive at 8% with a concentration of 21.8 parts per million. Minnesota Department of Agriculture, which x-rays all venison going to food pantries, has a rejection rate of 10%. Since DNR states that since the year 2000, hunters have donated 3.9 million pounds of venison to food pantries. If 15% is contaminated, that's 585,000 pounds total, or more than 25,000 pounds a year of contaminated meat going into the diets of some already vulnerable people. In January 2023, FDA set a guideline for the lead level in commercially sold meat at 10 parts per billion. In Wisconsin, because it is wild meat, there's no FDA, DATCAP, or any other regulation of food pantry venison. The lead level found in the Wisconsin study converts to, and this is, remember, 10 parts per billion with FDA, it converts to 15,900 parts per billion, which is quite a lot higher. If that lead level in Wisconsin was in a commercial setting, FDA would remove it from the market. Should we be encouraging people to consume something they couldn't buy at Walmart? The bottom line is there's lead in that meat. People eat the meat, and the exposure is likely enough to affect children and possibly adults. The ultimate solution is the banning of lead ammunition, which would benefit both humans and wildlife. Until then, DNR should remove the misleading material from its website and provide a science-based warning for consumers of food pantry venison. Resuming the Carl Bathett type toxic ammunition demonstrations wouldn't hurt either. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Dave? Thank you, Dave. Very serious issue, and those are big numbers. Next appearance is Charlie Henriksen. Charlie's the chair of the Lake Michigan Commercial Fishing Board, and by that statutory responsibility as an advisor to the board, he is operating outside the 3-minute limit if he so chooses. Charlie, welcome. It's been a while. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Smith. I believe I'm unmuted. Is that right?
You're coming through loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay.
You're on the
So,
screen.
yeah, as you said, it's been a while. So, I'm sort of here to introduce myself to the new board members and comment on a few ongoing items that are occurring in the commercial fishery. I've often given an annual update at your August meeting. I had a conflict to appear in person. Until this week, we hadn't scheduled it, and I think it's still up in the air whether I'm coming in September or October. But I just wanted to comment on a couple things that are happening right now. The main concern I have right at the minute is the ongoing effort to create a scope statement for commercial harvest of lake trout. And that was promised in last December in Justine's update to you about the ongoing process. So at our recent commercial fishing board meeting, we asked for some input as the final scope statement is being developed. And Brad Egel told us that that wasn't how the DNR operated, that they would produce the scope statement and then we'd have to, comment it when it came to you or go to the governor or, who knows what we'd have to do. But so as you know, I'd rather work this stuff out in advance, and we would like to discuss the final scope statement with them because we really don't have an idea where it's going, and it's been our rule. It's been our thing. I think the Natural Resources Board first directed them to develop a scope statement back in December of 2016. We've been looking for a commercial harvest of lake trout for over 50 years. So now that we're on the cusp of it, it would seem that we could help develop it. And while Brad has told us that the Lake Michigan technical team, I think that's the one, has enough information to make a recommendation. Everything that happened in the ongoing meetings about lake trout raised a lot of questions. So last year, we talked extensively with staff and looking for a way to conduct a study to see what the real effects of commercial fishing for lake trout would entail and what would occur. And that we did not have any mechanism for us to get any lake trout. Your legal department researched it thoroughly and said there's just not fish available that we can give you to do a study. So there's a lot of different parts in play here as this scope statement comes out. So we don't know if they're just going to say, well, here's the harvestable surplus, 8,000 fish, you can have them. We don't know where it's going. And you Chairman Smith, understand my concerns about that because we're the last people we're going to get lake trout. We relaxed the sport fishing rules. We've changed stuff. The tribal fisheries in northern Lake Michigan are fishing a lot of fish, and it seems that the responsibility to make sure that we don't interrupt reproduction is laid on Wisconsin's commercial fisheries. So we're very concerned where the scope statement is going. But then Brad told us when we asked this question, he said that was above his pay grade. So that's why I'm here. I had a brief discussion yesterday with Diane Brusso, and I think I'm talking to you and everyone in the secretary's office on down that I don't know whose pay grade that is to make this decision, but we would just like to sit down and talk about where the scope statement's going. So that's primarily where I'm here. And I'm not gonna, we're making progress on the trawl rule. We still have some repercussions from the whitefish rule that came down to that last minute thing where the secretary had to interfere. So I just want to prevent something like that happening again. So I think if we got on the same page right from the beginning, it would be good. And as we've discussed this stuff forever, it may be that moving this forward with an emergency rule might be appropriate. So I just wanted to give you that update, and we'll look forward to some response from the department staff, and we will be back to see you in a month or two. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Charlie. And, relative to your comments on pay grade, you should probably be comparing it with somebody else. The board is all citizen volunteers and we're all unpaid. So we're going to, at least from a financial standpoint, we get lots of psychic pay on this job. Relative to the scope, it is the staff's responsibility to draft that up, and it has to come back before the board for approval. So if for some reason there's a part of that scope that you feel is inadequate or it's not meeting your needs, that'll be an opportunity to come and talk about that before the board. Hopefully that'll all be covered and we'll be in agreement when it gets here. But we'll look forward to seeing you in September, October, and thank you for the preview.
Thank you. I also don't get paid, Bill, so as your official advisor, I just don't feel it's appropriate to be left out of this final part of the process. So
I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments of Charlie? Robin?
Just nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. And I appreciated this board's work so far today that I've heard about. So thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Next appearance is Kim Dupre from Emerald, former resident, here to talk about public water. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. And thank you guys for hearing us today. I appreciate that. After reading the latest DNR drinking water report on public waters, if you get your drinking water from a public water system, it seems like you're in really good hands in Wisconsin. And I kudos to all the folks who do that work. I listen to the DNR drinking water group every quarter, and there's a lot of good people behind the scenes. So thank you to all them. However, but for those of us who get our drinking water from a private well, this is a very different story. Let's see, when E. coli is found in a public water system, it's hair on fire time, right? Notices are going out to everybody who may be affected. That's priority number one. And per the report, it said that, quote, public water systems are required to take action to find the sources of contamination and fix the issues, unquote. However, when E. coli was found in a cluster of homes with private wells in Emerald Township, after a massive manure spill was found upstream, none of this happened. DNR was called. The local DNR gal was great. She put in a request for a advanced testing called a microbial source testing test to find the contamination source. But Madison denied the request. No notices went out to neighbors in the area. No source was ever investigated, let alone found or corrected. And why not? You know, is safe drinking water only needed by those on public water systems? The report also mentions, quote, consuming water with high nitrate levels has been linked to chronic diseases in adults, including increased cancer risk, because nitrate gets converted within the human body to known carcinogens, unquote. Once again, those on private systems are kind of on their own. The town hall in Emerald watched their nitrates rise from 6.9 parts per million to consistently testing over 40 parts per million in nitrates in just 13 years' time. UW Extension tells us that a reverse osmosis system is not equipped to safely remove nitrates that are over 30 parts per million. So what are rural residents and businesses to do? I'm a cancer survivor. At the time, I was only 3 years removed from my diagnosis, living in Emerald with contaminated wells all around me. Safe drinking water mattered to me, and it mattered to my neighbors, one of which was pregnant, another which had just started his cancer treatments. The disparity of access to safe drinking water was striking to me between rural and urban suburban Wisconsin, and this should not be. We all deserve safe drinking water and the same level of protection and notification by our government, no matter our zip code or from where our drinking water comes. I see my time is up. So that's my point, is that I would love to see DNR be more involved in public health and safety when it comes to drinking water in rural areas. We want to be able to have trust in our water when we turn on our tap. And I didn't have that trust anymore. And that's why we left the state. I can't risk that. So thank you for your time and your consideration. I'm willing to work with anybody to help on this issue. My husband still works in Wisconsin, so I'm still very tight here. So if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Kim. Other questions or comments from the board? Robin?
So I 100% share your concerns. I'm also on private well. The whole issue of PFAS and drinking water and the cost for testing for that particular compound is cost prohibitive for many people. But I also think that there are the way the regulations work, the way the systems work in terms of regulating municipal wells is just different. And
Oh, I
so
know it is.
I think the key is to how do we effectively change state law and, other, people who have the ability to give some DNR more authority for doing some of these things. And so I'm not an active frustration. A lot of people in Wisconsin that are on prinking. So
right.
It's a shared concern and it's a real concern. But I think there has to be more fundamental changes before the DNR has the ability to be as effective as we'd like them to be.
And I did hear at the last drinking water group that DNR is, I think, participating with the Land and Water Association in a full standing committee on the nitrate issue in drinking water with the health department. So I was very encouraged by that. I just heard about that a couple of weeks ago. We have been working very hard at the local level in St. Croix County. We've got 8 goals from our committee, the Community Development Committee, to work on for water quality. There's been a lot of testing going on in St. Croix County as well as in Dunn County. And Pierce County is starting to get on board now. So at the local level, the counties are starting to fill that gap, but ultimately some of these issues need to trickle upward. And so that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention today. There is good work being done on the ground, and I have lots of good things to say about your on-the-ground DNR staff. Stacy Steinke out of Eau Claire has been wonderful. So I really appreciate that. It seems we hit our roadblocks when we talk to Madison folks, and that's where the struggle is. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Next appearance is Nate Flustness from Hudson, speaking about enforcement in the Lower St. Croix Scenic Riverway. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Is that volume correct?
Yeah, just speak close to the mic.
Okay,
So
thank you. And Kate, if you could hand out those, you did already. Thank you. My wife Jan and I are here to ask the DNR and the NRB to re-engage in preserving the Lower St. Croix River. This is the 52-mile long bottom part of the National Wild and Scenic Riverway, the only river in the United States listed under scenic and wild protected from source to end. We moved into the riverway 35 years ago. We're both biologists, and we delighted in the wonderful habitat, forest, migratory birds, and all the other biodiversity there is there. Riverway rules have been in place to protect this thin strip of, did I lose it? No, it's all here. Habitat along the river. It's about a 1/4 mile wide on both sides of the river. Back then, in the 1990s, the DNR was very active in monitoring and enforcing the riverway rules. Permits were reviewed, checked that they were followed after they've been implemented, and significant fines were arranged. The county and our township also tightly controlled building permits. There was Minnesota-Wisconsin Boundary Commission, which included the National Park Service, to help everyone collaborate in protecting the river. But over time, things have changed. Wisconsin dropped out of the Boundary Commission in 2001. NR 118, the DNR's Standards for Lower St. Croix National Scenic Riverway, gave enforcement of the riverway rules and establishment of penalties to local units of government. This has been an interesting experiment, giving local units of government protection responsibilities for a national resource. How has it worked out? It's been give or take 20 years. Has it been successful? Well, the DNR is no longer visibly engaged in our part of the river. Our township dropped permit requirements for the riverway some years ago, so the only remaining enforcement body is the St. Croix County Development Department. They're the only ones with responsibility for enforcing the rules. If a homeowner logs the river bluff, the county says get a permit afterward and plant some little trees, but they don't come check. If a homeowner sprays the industrial herbicide Garlan or triclopyr from a moving ATV with a contractor with a hose, it violates the riverway rule of topical application to cut stems. When we report that to the county gives them a permit for spot spraying retroactively. When a homeowner builds without a permit, expanding vertically and horizontally on the river bluff, visible to everybody, and goes back to the County Development Department and Board of Adjustment, they're given a retroactive building permit for an extra $300. I asked the members of the St. Croix County Board of Adjustment if they'd ever denied such a permit. They looked at each other and said, well, we've only been here 7 years, but we've never turned one down. Retroactive building permits mean you can do whatever you want. We really need the DNR re-engaged in protecting the lower St. Croix River. From my point of view, you're the good guys. Come on back. Thank you.
Nate, any questions from the board?
I just want to say, when I became a member of the board, there was a lot of people in St. Croix County and Polk County and Pierce County that asked to be heard on the issues that were impacting our area. And I'm so grateful that they're here. And, you know, there are things that happen in the western part of Wisconsin that, for whatever reason, our residents may feel unheard. And I'm happy that they're here today because we're all listening.
Thank you. Next appearance is Linda Hendricks, New Richmond, here speaking as a wildlife advocate. Linda, are you here today?
Hi. I'm here. Can you hear me?
She's on virtual. Yeah, I can hear you. We don't have you on
Great.
screen yet.
That's all right. I'm just calling in on my phone.
All right, go ahead.
I would like to bring attention to something that is of deep concern to myself and other wildlife advocates. The Wisconsin DNR sends out bear hunter surveys yearly post-season. And just looking at them from 2020 through 2023, in those 4 years, bear hunters have indicated by over 70% that they were not aware of wolf caution areas. In fact, those figures are 74.4% in 2020, 72.5% in 2021, then 77.1% and 71.3% in 22 and 23. Keep in mind that these are different hunters these years, as it takes significant time to get a bear tag. In addition to them not knowing about wolf caution areas, those that did know did not avoid those areas while hunting. Those figures are 64.8 in 2020, followed by 62.9, 68.6, and 59.7 in the years 21, 22, and 23. There's clearly something wrong here if the DNR is not effectively getting the word out to bear hunters, hounders about these areas. There's also something wrong if hunters are not avoiding them. There needs to be accountability both by the DNR and the bear hunters here. I feel strongly that anyone training with dogs in Wisconsin or hunting with dogs on any wildlife should be required by law to subscribe to the DNR wolf conflict alerts. I also believe they should be required to stay out of those areas. Last spring, I submitted a WCC resolution on this topic. It is important to note that since 1987, over $1 million has been paid out to hounders for loss of their dogs, as much as $2,500 per hound. And now over 450 dogs have died being put in harm's way since that date. In fact, just in 2024, 10 dogs thus far have died. 4 in Bayfield, 3 in Clark, 2 in Sawyer, and 1 in Price. And that's only during training period. I would like to see zero money paid out to hounders who run dogs in wolf caution areas. It's really important to note that guide services are making a lot of money on our wildlife. A very well-known northern Wisconsin guide and taxidermy service charges $2,300 for a 5-day hunt with hounds, $2,600 with lodging. Bobcat 5-day hunts are $1,700 without lodging. It is no wonder that baiting begins as early as April 15th every year, and also why wolves are so disliked by hunters in Wisconsin. Perhaps this explains why tag holders are unaware of wolf caution areas. They put their trust in the guides they hire. Are hounds then just viewed as a business write-off? Lots to digest here. I am of the opinion that guides for bear hunting with hounds need to be investigated. Who are these people who are creating trespass issues, disturbing campers, and others in our northern forests? Wildlife should not be used as a profit-driven scheme. I also want to say that we have a cabin just outside of the Schwamagon, which is why I'm so aware of the hounding that happens and the increase in hounding. The last 2 times we've been to our cabin, we've been going up on Sundays. And we see numerous hound trucks coming back. I mean, hounding is really increasing in the northern forest, and my heart just breaks for wildlife. Hounding is very disruptive to all wildlife. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. You're over your 3-minute limit a little bit, so if you have anything in summary to say, be good to do that. I take your point to express concerns about the use of hounds, the impact on hounds and the costs of that. So thank you for your comments. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
That's the last of our appearances under open forum. We'll move on our agenda to item 6A, overview of Wisconsin DNR boating safety program, wake boat briefing, and aquatic invasive species considerations. Lieutenant Darren Kuhn, boating law administrator, and Michelle Knott, Lakes and Rivers section manager. Welcome, Michelle. I guess you're first up.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chairman Smith, Assistant Deputy Secretary Aquino, and members of the board. As mentioned, my name is Michelle Knott, and I'm the Lakes and Rivers Section Manager in the DNR's Bureau of Water Quality. And both myself and Lieutenant Darren Kuhn appreciate the opportunity to present some information at today's meeting. And we recognize that the board has asked for this agenda item since there's been a high degree of public interest in this topic. I will begin today's presentation by providing some information on aquatic invasive species considerations related to wake boats. And then Lieutenant Darren Kuhn, our boating law administrator, will provide an overview of the DNR boating safety program, as well as information on the laws, regulations, and authority as related to wake boats. The spread of aquatic invasive species and the impacts associated with them is a major concern in Wisconsin. A variety of aquatic invasive species have become established in hundreds of Wisconsin's lakes and rivers over the past few decades. On the statewide map shown on the screen, the orange indicated water bodies indicate that at least one aquatic invasive species is verified to be present. Watercrafts, boat trailers, and other recreational equipment, such as waders, bait buckets, and fishing gear, are primary pathways for aquatic invasive species spread between water bodies. Residual water remaining in live wells and ballast tanks can serve as a vector for transporting aquatic invasive species, especially small-bodied organisms such as zebra mussel veligers and spiny water fleas. Wisconsin law currently requires that any person who moves a boat, trailer, or other equipment from any Wisconsin water body to immediately drain all water, including water in any bilges, ballast tanks, bait buckets, live wells, or other containers. The recent gain in popularity of wake boats has led to increased concerns about their potential to spread aquatic invasive species amongst water bodies. Wake boats have the capacity to hold large volumes of waters within their internal ballast systems, and some wake boats are also designed in a way which makes complete draining or inspection difficult. This can result in a potential risk of transporting aquatic invasive species between water bodies via any residual water that may be present. There have been a limited number of studies which have sought to evaluate the potential risk of transporting zebra mussel veligers via residual water in wake boats, but the specific extent to which wake boats contribute to the overall spread of aquatic invasive species in Wisconsin is currently not well understood. Additional information on the number of wake boats in Wisconsin, as well as the frequency in which wake boats move amongst water bodies, is needed to better understand the degree to which they may contribute to the spread compared to other AIS introduction pathways. There are also additional factors which determine whether or not an invasive species which is introduced to a water body actually becomes established. For example, zebra mussels have a minimum calcium threshold, which is required to build their exterior shells, and many of our northern Wisconsin waters are not suitable to zebra mussels because of this environmental requirement. Overall, this presents a continuum of risk of spreading AIS dependent on specific boat and gear types, within lake characteristics, as well as the aquatic invasive species that are present. Once invasive species are established in a water body, there are oftentimes very limited options available for control. This has led to heightened outreach and coordinated outreach efforts towards preventing the introduction of aquatic invasive species. One of the primary efforts to educate boaters on AIS prevention is through our statewide Clean Boats, Clean Waters, or CBCW program. CBCW is an optional, volunteer-led program whose primary mission is to perform boat and trailer checks, hand out informational brochures, and educate boaters on specific actions they can take to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. Clean Boats, Clean Waters staff are trained to be educational resources on invasive species prevention, but they are not trained nor accredited to conduct any type of enforcement of AIS laws. CBCW staff coverage varies across lakes, with some lakes having robust comprehensive coverage, while others having no active staff. Temporal coverage of CBCW volunteers also varies across lakes, with some boat landings only being staffed on weekends or other high-traffic boat days, while others have more regular staffing. And finally, the department has convened an internal working group of subject matter experts from the department and UW to provide additional guidance and develop educational resources on specific AIS prevention practices that can be implemented on wake boats and ballast bags to further minimize the spread. This type of targeted outreach effort has been successfully implemented to other user groups in the past, such as efforts towards wading anglers and duck hunters. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to share some information on wakeboards and invasive species. And now I will invite Lieutenant Darren Kuhn to give an overview of the DNR Boating Safety Program, as well as some additional information on laws, regulations, and authority applicable to wake boats.
Hello, board. Thank you for having me. Chairman Smith, Assistant Deputy Secretary Aquino. My name is Darren Kuhn. I'm the boating law administrator for the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm going to talk briefly about Wisconsin's boating education program and then an overview of wake surfing and statutory challenges. So Wisconsin's boater education program, generally speaking, requires anyone born after January 1st, 1989 to have taken a boater education course. There's several options for people to take this course. We have our traditional in-person course. We have a traditional online course, which is very much just sort of a PowerPoint and follow through. And then we have a more interactive course that actually has some question and answers and is more, requires more input from the users to actually proceed to the next level. Then this course or the education program is recognized by NASBO, which is the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, which therefore means any state in the country will recognize Wisconsin boater education, and Wisconsin will recognize boater education from any other NASBA accredited course. Last year, the different courses that we had, the in-person was over 1,000. Online was 20,000 and change. So you can see that online in boating education, similar to ATV or hunter education, is definitely the most popular way to go. Wisconsin also recognizes the U.S. Power Squadron with a very small amount of 33, and then the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary with 74. These courses and these numbers aren't surprising in the simple fact that these are more higher level courses, that our DNR course is a very basic, safety-oriented boating ethics kind of course, as compared to both the U.S. Power Squadron and the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary course are far more advanced. Into the wake surfing materials. Currently, we have a number of state laws that are on the books that could be applied to wake surfing. We currently don't have anything specific on the books, whether it's administrative code or state statutes specific to wake surfing. So I broke these down into different categories. First being speed. Generally speaking, any motorboat cannot operate at a speed greater than slow no wake within 100 feet of any lake, shore, raft dock, pier, or buoy restricted area. There's also speed restrictions for slow and awake requirements for lakes less than 50 acres. Additionally, specific to personal watercraft, you can't operate a personal watercraft within 100 feet of any other boat or within 200 feet of the shore of any lake. None of these are really specific to wake surfing, but could be applied, although generally speaking, most of the concerns that we see around the communities and around the state are not within 100 feet from shore. The next category is the hazardous wake and wash. This statute basically says that you can't create or be responsible for any damages caused or injuries resulting from a hazardous wake or wash. However, with this specific statute, it limits it onto approaching or passing of other boats. So a situation where a wake surfer may be out in the middle of the lake, the wake generated, causes an issue with a kayaker 200 feet away, that this law isn't going to be an application for the simple fact that it's not a passing or approaching situation. Negligent operation is another one. Basically, this is a criminal charge. It's the only criminal charge of the statutes that we're talking about currently and on the books today. This requires a long-form criminal complaint from the district attorney's office to be filed, and has a far higher degree, far higher burden of proof. These cases are generally reserved for the most serious injury cases, cause injury by intoxicated use or serious personal injury, serious property damage, fatality-related situations. The aquatic invasive species laws, both in NR code and in statute, as Michelle pointed out, requires all boats to remove all the water from them and weeds prior to leaving. Very difficult to enforce with the fact that the closed cell systems of most ballast boats present that challenge. As a result, a lot of communities have went to local boating ordinances. Local communities have statutory authority to create local boating ordinances. These authorities require that the department have administrative review of each local boating ordinance. A common misconception is that this review is an approval or a denial process. It is not. It is strictly an advisory review, basically saying, is the proposed ordinance consistent with state law? Is it consistent with the public trust doctrine? Is it consistent with federal boating laws? And providing assistance to those local units of government on how to make their ordinance more applicable, more efficient, more effective for the goal that they're trying to produce. A number of different types of local boating ordinances are present. Most deal with speed, generally will be slow and awake type situations where you see the slow and awake buoys on different water bodies. Those are generally through local boating ordinance. Types of boating activities and parts of the lake. Some have specific areas where you can water ski. Some have clockwise travel only. But that would be another example. Boating activities based on time of day. There's many boating ordinances that prohibit speeds greater than slow and awake during the middle portion of the day so that the paddle sports have a time to get out and recreate unobstructed. Local boating ordinances for wake surfing are numerous. There are a number of different examples out there currently. Anything from distances from shore to wave height measurements. But right now, the most common ordinance that's being passed around, that's passed administrative review, deals specifically with the prohibition of using ballast tanks on a particular body of water. What are we doing? As the division, Public Safety and Resource Protection, a number of things. We do the ordinance reviews. We help the local communities with their reviews. We give them guidance. We provide suggestions both in written form and verbal and meetings and attendance at their hearings, etc. We have our outdoor skills trainers who man our welcome centers that are generally stationed busy holiday weekends, special big boating events at local boat landings or different outdoor recreation type events, such as a Fleet Farm outdoor days or something along those lines. We have public campaigns, the Wake Responsibly. This is basically our staff trying to get into the community and reminding them to be respectful of all people on the water, that everyone has equal right to the water, and that we need to respect everyone's different uses. Grants for boat patrols. We have, since 2021, provided nearly $8 million of funding to local boat patrols to help with their local ordinance enforcement and to have more staff being a presence on our Wisconsin waterways. And then our AIS partnership that Michelle talked about. With that, Michelle and I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Darren. Questions from the board for either Darren or Michelle?
This appears to be one of those topics.
Patty, go ahead.
This appears to be one of those topics where legislation and implementation are not on the same page. And that, which leaves everybody, whether you're living on a lake or have a boat or a concerned citizen, there's like this blank space.
Yeah.
In that, which seems to be a theme of a lot of the issues. So how does, I mean, if, you know, you're doing what you can for implementation, how does the word get across to legislators? Hey, here's some real issues. Is that the responsibility of us? Is that the responsibility of constituents? I mean, it just seems like a lot of the topics, the solution is clear, but getting there is hard.
Let me speak briefly on our experience at the board over the last few years. This has been a very hot topic of discussion. We've had regular and frequent appearances from the public, and they're recognizing and stating exactly what you did. A lot of the things they want need legislative change. Our advice to them is they need to be talking with their legislators and really networking with people that have the same concerns to build more of a base of support and a concerted effort. And I think they're really working hard at that. They seem to be making a lot of progress. One of the reasons the board asked for the informational briefing was just to provide a public update on what's possible within our authority and really what isn't possible under present authority. And it's also a chance to give the new board members a chance to have some dialogue with staff and to understand the question. Along with the briefing, we don't allow public appearances at an info briefing, but we do take written input, and we got a bushel basket full. We have several people that provide written materials, and it indicates the work that's going on in the public. They're trying to network, get a common message together, and really present a more polished and more formal recommendations, I think, for those areas that require legislative change.
Thank you.
Robin.
A question. Could you explain the grants for local boat patrols? Do those boat patrols have any kind of enforcement authority? Is it just a kind of, hey, a friendly reminder, please don't do this, or like what are those?
No, the boat patrol grants have very specific criteria, very specific enforcement, public safety responsibilities. So the one requirement for application for this grant or these grant programs are that it's certified law enforcement staff that are performing them. So generally speaking, it's sheriff's offices, police departments, some sanitary districts may very well set up their own. For instance, Lake Geneva has a very specific Lake Geneva Water Patrol, which are certified law enforcement officers who are out there as a force multiplier, if you will, for the warden service, doing public safety, police presence, response to emergencies, and law enforcement. So there are guidelines, there are criteria. So there definitely is, as any policing, some wave and have a good day, enjoy your time on the water, but there is definitely law enforcement that goes with that.
So not to open a can of worms, are tribes eligible for these? What is there a relationship between tribal authorities and, or am I opening a whole can of worms in terms of enforcement on of different things on?
You're opening a whole can of worms,
Okay,
but generally speaking, our Wisconsin boat patrols enforce Wisconsin state statutes, administrative codes, local ordinances, depending on the patrol. Tribal would have their own rules, regulations that are not enforced by these local boat patrols. Those would be enforced by tribal police. So you may very well have tribal police and local police on the same lake, but our boat patrols are not tribal related.
Marcy?
Okay, just to clarify for that, then are they county employees or who gets the grant for the patrols?
The county, city, village, town.
And then they become employees or contract employees for?
They would be, in that perspective, they would ultimately be subcontractors, if you would, that it's state money that comes from the boat registration fund that's allocated by the Wisconsin legislator for this specific maximum dollar amount to be divvied out to these specific to these local boat patrols. The local boat patrols maintain their records, provide their records to the department. The department ultimately reimburses these agencies for the work that their patrols have done throughout the previous boating season.
Interesting. Okay. If I could follow up, one of the concerns I heard at the spring Conservation Congress meetings, our wardens are spread thin, and Sauk County was the example where Devil's Lake State Park is a huge park and takes a great deal of enforcement resources, but there's a number of other waterways within the county that the wardens can't necessarily pay attention to as they would probably prefer than the issues they have to deal with at Devil's Lake. So if you could wave a magic wand, or if you might not be able to answer it today, but at some point, if we could get an update on how warden recruitment's going, how the numbers are looking for coverage, and how many we would need to be able to fulfill, if the department was to play a role in these ordinances. Because even if you don't have an ordinance, on a number of the waterways, the rules that you listed, I mean, the lake that we have a cabin on, you couldn't stay 100 feet away in some areas, and not cause a disturbance. So what are we looking at as far as how the warden staffing is going and being able to address this big of an issue?
I can speak to that in general terms. I won't obviously have specific staffing numbers or dollar amounts or anything like that, but generally speaking, our recruiting is good. We're currently in the hiring process to hire 12 to 15 new wardens, which in warden hiring in the past history is a decent sized class. The previous class, I believe, was 21. And a lot of that comes down to funding as well as position numbers. So the department as a whole is issued a specific number of position numbers. Public safety resource protection gets a portion of those position numbers. So with our staffing, yes, we are not full. We definitely have vacancies. Those vacancies definitely do hurt. But generally speaking, each county in the state has two wardens. Some have specifically more. Sauk County, or that team that covers Devil's Lake for the specific nature of Devil's Lake. But for the warden service to effectively maintain the work that we do at all the state parks across the state, not just Devil's Lake, but all parks, ATV enforcement, fishing enforcement, commercial fishing, all the stuff that wardens are responsible for responding to throughout the summer boating period. Even if we were full staffed with our allotted position numbers, trying to effectively enforce local boating ordinances still would be a challenge. 72 counties in the state, how many towns per county? Each town or each county has varying degrees of local boating ordinances. For instance, I believe the last time I looked it up, Waukesha County, obviously a urban area, populated, very high boat traffic, has over 700 different boating ordinances just for Waukesha County alone. So now, mind you, some of the more rural counties don't have that number of boating ordinances, but that's just one of our urban counties. They're on the Brown counties and Milwaukee counties, the Racine, Kenosha, our bigger metropolitan areas, and just that vast amount of local ordinance knowledge that would be required, plus with our staffing and honestly, the future of our staffing, even as we continue to hire classes every year and get number of qualified applicants, our staff are required to travel to different areas of the state. So when I was in the field assigned to Green Bay, it was very common for me, especially on Green Bay, on the boat, to go up to O'Connell or Marinette or Dorr. So for our staff to try to keep track of that many local boating ordinances or local ordinances in general would just be daunting.
Yeah, definitely.
Other questions, comments?
Thank you for explaining that. It's really complex.
Robin?
Yeah, I have a question for Michelle. There's a lot more impact, I think, from an ecosystem perspective than just AIS from wake boats has been presented to us. And I particularly appreciated the efforts of Wisconsin Green Fire to do a literature review of the effects of wake boats on lake ecosystem health overall. And so I guess what I'm curious about is Is there specific research, additional research? I mean, clearly there's a lack of maybe agreement on some of the issues associated with this, but is there research that's needed in order to get a better scientific consensus in terms of scouring of the lake bed, effects on fish habitat, spawning habitat, things like that? Like how do we move forward on understanding truly what the impacts are from a science perspective on the whole ecosystem effects that can be happening?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I can say in general, there has been a limited number of studies that have looked at the ecological impacts. Specifically with invasive species, I'm aware of 2 studies that have been published out there that have looked specifically at zebra mussels and wake boats. So I think that there is, a knowledge gap with other invasive species, not just these small-bodied organisms, but aquatic plants, fish, crayfish, all these other critters we have out there, so to say. And yes, to your point, the invasive species component is one of the ecological concerns with wake boats, but there are other ecological concerns with, shoreline erosion and turbidity, resuspension, aquatic plant destruction. There have been, again, a couple studies, primarily, I know there's one from the University of Minnesota that's oftentimes cited for some of the proposed setback distances. I know that study is currently in a phase 2 where they're kind of working from those preliminary findings and trying to dig a little bit deeper and kind of re-quantify some of those original estimates that they came up with. I'm also aware of at least 1 or 2 lakes in Wisconsin through our surface water grant program that are looking to better understand the potential non-target kind of ecological impacts of these wake boats in our Wisconsin lakes. Minnesota lakes are very similar to ours, but some of the other, studies may be being done in like the Western United States with these large, deep reservoirs may not be as applicable to our scenario here in Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Well, so as I understand it, it is a law that we have that you can't transport water in a ballast of any sort between. So why are these legal at all? Why aren't they just banned? How do they get around that? Is the law? How are they allowed on our lakes at all?
So ultimately, the public trust doctrine and the Wisconsin Constitution basically say that the water is free for any mode of transportation. So to say that we can't have a particular type of boat, it's the department's position that is not legally allowed to say this particular type of boat is not allowed on Wisconsin lakes. Particular activities can be regulated, thus why the local boating ordinance, the most popular one, dealing with not using your ballast tanks, is so popular, because what that does is it basically says you can use your boat all you want. You can pleasure ride, you can ski, you can tube, you can do whatever, play your music, however you want to boat, but you cannot use your ballast equipment. The ballast equipment is the tricky part of the AIS and the potential threats of spreading the AIS. So they're prohibiting that. As far as tracking or how many boats are there in the state of Wisconsin, or even to get back into that of saying, okay, these boats aren't allowed. Our registration system is solely based on federal requirements. The federal government, the Coast Guard, ultimately says, these are the questions that you will ask on your boat registration form. You will allow all boats onto your waterways that meet our safety requirements. So any boat that's manufactured in the United States or comes into the United States has to go through Coast Guard inspections to make sure that they're not going to sink as soon as they put them out there. So the Coast Guard basically rules the roost. It says you will not ban these boats. These are the questions that you will ask on your registration form, and if it's a ballast boat is not one of their questions. So ultimately, we have no idea to say this many boats, ballast boats are here in the state of Wisconsin. Plus, the boating industry has recognized that ballast capable boats, wake surfing, the stuff that is extending that to is a huge trend. So there's pretty much every boat manufacturer in the country now is coming up with different ways to make your boat ballast capable. For instance, if you've seen some of those large pontoon boats, the tri-toons, those are now ballast capable, some of them. So to ban a particular type of boat ultimately could be the potential of banning big pontoons, this boat, that boat, and I could take any Lund fishing boat, any Alumacraft fishing boat, and get aftermarket ballast bags on it, and it's now ballast capable. So trying to ban a particular type of boat that is so much aftermarket out there and so popular in the industry would be impossible.
In relation to that, isn't Michelle's point that the cat's pretty much out of the bag, that we've got, I mean, the invasives have spread throughout our water systems already. So I would imagine saying that we can't have those, and don't jet skis also, some of the jet skis also have the ability to carry the water in the bottoms, anyway, the point is that according to the map, you know, and your comment in our prep work is that the spread of invasives couldn't necessarily be pinpointed specifically to a type of boat.
Correct. Aquatic invasive species has been on the radar for most of my career. Long before ballast boats or wake surfing was on the landscape. So it's undeniable that aquatic invasive species have been spread through the state of Wisconsin through other recreational boating practices from the past, no doubt. There is definitely a possibility, there's definitely a concern that wake boats, just like any other boat, are a possible vector for spreading aquatic invasive species. That's undeniable as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And we don't know what the next one on the horizon is, you know, if we could prevent another one. So,
nope.
Okay.
That's sort of stepped on your world, but that's.
Yeah, I really don't have anything else to add. I think Darren covered that really well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Robin, go. Okay. I have a couple that I'd like to add, defer to the other board members first, but it seems to me when the state started and raised concerns about invasives initially and took action against possible vectors, at that time, we didn't have a wealth of evidence and documentation and data. We did it in a preventive mode to try and prevent the spread, not document it and determine who caused it. Why aren't we approaching it the same way with the wake boat risk?
Well, I think we are, or at least we're trying to approach it that way. And that's part of that last part of my presentation about this kind of targeted outreach effort towards this user group, this particular user group of wake boat operators. You know, we realize that we've gone a long way from the traditional, you know, John boat, motorboat. You know, Marcy mentioned jet skis. There's water bikes out there. There's, you know, paddle boards. There's all these different sort of vectors. And so we're trying to come up with specific things that a wake boat owner can do to go beyond the clean, drain, dry that all, you know, water users have to do. The wading anglers was again, a targeted group that we had worked with in the past. We had concerns about them spreading small snails and other organisms on their boots. And so putting a trailer sign there that says, make sure you pull the plants off your trailer isn't really applicable to that particular user group. So we worked on some targeted messages for them. We have wader cleaning stations now at some of our popular streams. And so I think the idea here is to come up with some of these targeted educational resources for wake boat operators so that they can make sure that they're doing, their due diligence and trying to minimize that spread.
Thank you, Michelle. The second part of that question, and maybe Darren can answer this one better. What response have we seen from industry? They must be well knowledgeable of our laws in this state and other states. They know we're at kind of an impasse here and that the law says the boat's got to be dry when it leaves the lake. And yet we're having problems with burden of proof on it. So there hasn't been a real enforcement response. We've got water leaving the lakes and being dumped in other lakes. We're at an impasse. How is the industry responding to that? Are they trying to come up with solutions?
Yeah, I think the industry is doing a fair job. Wisconsin, on its level of enforceability or even strength of their AIS laws compared to some other states, we're on that middle spectrum. There's definitely more states. There's states out there that have far more strict AIS rules than Wisconsin does. The industry also has to deal with those states. This is not a Wisconsin issue. This is a national issue. In my time with NASBLA as a boating law administrator, this is a topic of conversation. Every conference when all the boating law administrators get together is wake boats and ballast tanks and how different states deal with it. Also part of that conversation is the industry. So the industry recognizes that this is a significant issue in all states in the country because most states have some level of AIS. So recently they've developed an app for both or any phone that basically goes back to, I believe it was 2010, 2012 model years of every wake boat that's on the market, and actually details the decontamination process at your fingertips. All you have to do is go to the app. It's a free app. Put in your boat and it works. Is it the best app in the world? I guess I'm not one to judge that, but there's some flaws, but it's a step. Additionally, the industry has had, began having part of their annual meetings or biannual meetings where all the major manufacturers get together. They've started to collaborate with specific to AIS and wake surfing, where Malibu is now sharing with Ski Nautique and Mastercraft is sharing with everybody different AIS configurations. One agreement that was made that I believe is going to be in the 2025 model years of wake surfing boats, your traditional wake surfing boats, is a single port decontamination threaded inlet. So ultimately, to decontaminate your wake surfing boat, instead of having to worry about all the different ballast tanks at different ports and whatnot, one of the manufacturers came up with a single port that would decontaminate all ballast tanks with one hose. They shared it. It's now going to be out there. The decontamination process for wake surfing boats has never been easier. You plug in the hose ultimately and push a button on the console. So the industry is making strides. Does it put a lot of responsibility back on the boat owner? Yes, absolutely. But it's different strides that hadn't been there in the past. So I think they're looking at this from that level too, recognizing that if the states are able to convince federal government on different boating restrictions, that this is their industry. Is it good enough? Not for me to say, but I think they deserve some credit because they are making some progress, or at least taking it seriously.
Well, I think a lot of the board attention is on invasives at this meeting. The written input we got from the public was heavily tilted toward invasives and to try and deal with that particular issue. That's not to diminish all the other concerns that are out there about the habitat, the water safety, the property damage, and those things largely are going to require some kind of a legislative approach, and citizens are working on that. I think the focus of this meeting was to kind of look at what we have now and what we can do now as within the range of authority that the department has. So, other questions? Robin, go ahead.
So I do, and I apologize if this might be a naive question, but we talk a lot about the public trust, about the waters of the state. And I know there's a lot of regulations about what you can and can't do on a lake bed. And I'm just concerned that we're focused too much on AIS, and I'm curious as to, do we have any authority when you take an activity, especially in more shallow lakes, or maybe lakes between that 50-acre and 300-acre size, where the science seems to show there is damage occurring by the use of these types of systems because of the depths and the volume and the disruption. And I'm just, I guess maybe a bit disappointed that we don't seem to have any authority to address those types of issues when we have such a strong public trust doctrine in the state.
I agree. I don't know what more to add to that. I agree that we have, as a department, you know, one of our roles obviously is environmental protection. And we currently don't have any legislation to enforce that would prohibit operating any boat on any body of water that's 51 acres or bigger at a speed greater than slow and awake or these different activities. So yes, I think, and I'm speculating.
So I'm not missing anything.
You are
missing
not.
anything.
You are not. I mean, we have dredging rules. Obviously, you can't bring a backhoe in and dredge out that lake, but there is nothing that is on the books currently that prohibits the use of a boat, how it was designed or not designed to be operated on those bodies of water. Any lake that's less than 50 acres and they're doing this, that we have a law for that. But anything over, there's nothing on the books. I think when phase 2 of that Minnesota study comes out, which specifically is going to address bottom scouring, and will actually have some peer-approved, peer-reviewed scientific data that says this type of boating does this at this depth, or because it's not just going to be wake surfing, it's studying the effects of recreational boating on the substrates of navigable waters. So there's going to be a lot of data there. And I, for one, am waiting for its release because we'll have some solid scientific evidence at that point.
Thank you.
Marcy?
Cheryl hasn't stood up in a while, so I have one for Cheryl. Cheryl, we received a petition. I can't even remember which month, but or the department did. Can you just give us an update on where that is, please, and give a better overview of the petition?
We did, Cheryl Heilman, the general counsel of the DNR, we did receive a petition from a significant number of people asking us to look at rulemaking specifically to address aquatic invasive species, and modeled after some rules that have been adopted in Vermont with respect to how they regulate wake boats. We are in the process and have been in looking into both what Vermont has been doing and what they're doing now to try and implement their rule, and also with respect to what other states are doing and what the department's authority might allow with respect to rulemaking. So we are actively continuing our investigation. You can hear from the presentation today that it's complicated. And there are some differences between Wisconsin and Vermont that, require some further analysis with respect to what's possible here.
Stay tuned, huh?
Yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Darren, if you take the mic again. You mentioned the local ordinances that have been really springing up. That's a kind of a phenomenon of just the last couple of years, really, that local governments, short of getting some kind of legislative change in the state, have taken it upon themselves to try and make progress on the concerns that citizens have through that local ordinance. You mentioned there's a number of them out there and there's more of them in processing. And you've got an advisory capacity there. I'm just wondering, in your experience and your contact with local governments, how are these ordinances working out for them?
Well, To back up a little bit, local boating ordinances aren't a new phenomenon. I mean, they've been around for for a long, long time. And there's local boating ordinances on the books going way back. Local boating ordinances specific to wake surfing are a relatively new phenomenon. And even more so, the local boating ordinances with the ballast tanks and prohibitions on using ballast equipment or basically anything to artificially create that large wake. We're probably at about 20 now. The last time I checked, we were probably about 20 ordinances. How are they? What is their success? Is a very difficult question for me to answer because I don't track local ordinance citations or enforcements or contacts. I can say an interesting phenomenon that we're starting to see more recently is that some are being challenged at the local political level. I know there's some in the northern part of the state that have organizations have been sued, or the towns have been sued over their passage. I know in the central part of the state, there's a couple that have been rescinded and then readopted. So that is a relatively new phenomena. When they started, the ordinances basically started out as distances from shore, this many feet. Then they generally started to progress into the throwing in some depths of water and distances from shore, and sort of snowballed. And now we're into the AIS prevention and the prohibition. And what seemingly, and again, I don't have, a specific number of ordinances that are being challenged or not approved or any specific data. But we are starting to see within the last 6 months, being generous, more of the local boating ordinances being challenged either after implementation through the legal process or during the public hearings. I don't know if that trend is going to continue or if these are isolated situations. I don't know. But I know in lieu of state legislation and the fact that every body of water throughout the state of Wisconsin has its own uniqueness, local boating ordinances are going to be the only true way for a local community to address this. But it does have to be done through the government system. And if the communities aren't in favor of it, I guess they're responsible for their own local passage or not. Did I answer your? I sort of stepped around your question because I don't have a whole bunch of data for you.
As best you could, we both recognize they haven't been on scene dealing with wake bullets for very long, so there's not a wealth of experience. I was just curious what kind of feedback you've been getting from local governments.
Some are very receptive, and some don't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole. And that's about as honest as I can be about it. What we see, another trend is that a local town may try to enact an ordinance, but doesn't have the enforcement capability of doing it. And then local sheriffs are choosing not to enforce that town ordinance, which isn't anything new, specific to local boating ordinances. That's been going on probably since town government and county government have been apart. But I think there's a lot of pushing stuff through the town level and not necessarily bringing the sheriff in at the beginning phases as compared to bringing them in the aftermath. I think is causing some problems that way. But I think 50-50 on whether we want this. I can tell you for fact that I have far more conversations with local lake associations, local units of government, different concerned individuals reference wake boat ordinances or prohibitions regulating this sport than are passed in ordinance. I mean, there's a lot more conversation than that are actually coming to getting signed off on by the town boards. I'm talking wake surfing with somebody practically every day of the week.
Must be a huge impact on your workload that wasn't quite anticipated a couple of years ago.
Let me say, after I presented to the board a couple years ago and that obligation came to me, yeah, it affects my workload a little bit.
Well, thank you very much for all the extra efforts and focusing on it. It's a very big, important issue for the public. Other questions or comments?
I have one, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ken.
Can you hear me,
Go
hear me,
ahead.
Chair? Yeah. So I lost power here at home, but I switched to my phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All
Can
right,
hear you
so-
loud and clear. Go ahead.
So kind of the same lines as your thoughts, Chairman, is, you know, if we're trying to regulate and trying to make our codes and ordinances work, including the local ones, are we keeping track of that data? So do we know, can we sort that out? Do we know how many citations we've issued regarding wake boating and how many have successfully, made it to a citation? Do we keep track of that data?
So we keep track of the data as it relates to our staff and their enforcement of state statutes and administrative codes. So I presented, I believe the board all received a fact sheet probably Monday on some specific data. And I believe on that fact sheet, there was since 2021, I believe there was a very small amount. I don't want to give the specific number without having the report in front of me, but a very small amount of citations that were issued for hazardous wake. Unfortunately, we do not track boat type specific citations. A motorboat is a motorboat. So if a motorboat created hazardous wake, they'd be cited for the hazardous wake violation, and it wouldn't say within the violation or trackable data if it was a surf boat or a ballast boat or a jet ski. As far as local ordinance enforcement and citation numbers on that, we don't get those numbers from the local agencies. I'm sure each local agency tracks their own numbers, but as far as how many citations were issued in town of Spider Lake, Sawyer County, the department doesn't have access to that.
All right, just a thought there on that kind of data helping with individuals that are looking to, to press for better legislation. That kind of data might be helpful when moving things forward to try to get legislation passed on this, justification on how much is going on out there. Not that they don't already know, just additional data is always good. That was the extent of my questions. Everything else I had was covered by everyone. So thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Could we just check if did we get that data?
If not, it will be coming because
Okay,
it was
thank you.
it was just approved. At least I received the final copy on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments?
Thank
Darren,
you.
Michelle, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I'll just close with, if anybody on the board has any specific questions, feel free to reach out directly to Michelle or I. Our phones are always there, so we're more than welcome to talk if you want to process some of the stuff that was said, or when you get that fact sheet, just give a call.
I'm sure we'll be talking about it more.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, which brings us to item 7, Department Secretaries Matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the honor of presenting 3 staff for recognition for retirement. Jeremy Plautz, Public Safety Resource Protection Captain, 28 years. Jean M. Brombeck Bartles, Regional Administration Secretaries Director, Northeast Region, 31 years. Dan G. Bauman, Regional Administration Secretaries Director for West Central Region, 32 years. I'd like to congratulate all 3 and thank them for the extremely high level of public service that they have provided throughout their career. So with that, I would respectfully request a motion to approve their recognitions.
And I would like to acknowledge, before I ask for the motion, that one of those retirees is in the audience. Jean Rombeck Bartles found her way over here and came to sit in on her official retirement acknowledgement. Jean, I'd like to double down on Mark's comments about your length of service and the great pleasure working with you over all those years, and congratulations. With that, I'd like a motion to acknowledge the retirements.
So moved.
We have a motion.
A
We have
second.
second. Motion from Patty and a second from Paul. Any further comments?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Doug.
So just say similar to yours, you know, I've known Jean for quite some time. She's done wonders for our Northeast region and our relationship that we've experienced through her leadership in our region. And over the years, I just can't say enough about how active and visible she was in relation to tribal matters and her work she did, at least from my experience with Menominee. So, but again, from my board spot, congratulations. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug. We have a motion to approve. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. You're recognized, Jean. Acts of the Department Secretary, real estate transaction.
So there were no real estate transactions on this agenda, but are there any questions?
Any other department secretaries matters?
No, nothing else to mention. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to board members matters. We have one decision item up. It's 8A, which will be approval of the 2025 Natural Resources Board meeting dates. Attached to your materials, any questions or discussion? Robin?
Yeah, I don't know how to make this as a formal request, and I don't think any of these dates for 2025 are of concern, but yesterday was election day, and for many of us who were poll workers, we were not able to do that service. We're fortunate that we can vote early and we can have other options for voting, but I really feel like with all of the staff that were involved in the work that we went through yesterday, I really feel like it shouldn't be occurring on a day of such importance where we want to encourage people to vote. So I would ask that I think I did a check. I don't think there are any primaries or election dates here, but that if there is such a situation like that that occurs, that we make an exception and move that date so that we're not interfering with an election.
Very, very important point. Can we add that to the filter, the criteria of selecting dates in the future? All right, thank you. Other comments or questions on the calendar for 2025? Okay, with that, are we ready for a motion?
Approval?
Robin moves approval.
I'll second.
And Marcy seconds. Any more comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have a schedule for 2025. We'll move on to board member matters. Paul Burr.
Thank you. Bill, I just want to express my gratitude to all the staff and citizens that were involved in our tour day yesterday. It was a great day. The friends groups and the staff, I never cease to be amazed at the dedication and their enthusiasm in their job. And I thank them. Other than that, that's all I have. I know also I'd like to thank you for your grace and eloquence in conducting our meetings. It's always amazes me. Thank you.
Those are terms that I'm not real familiar with. Thanks. Patty Shockner.
yesterday was amazing. And to all the staff and everybody that was involved and the Friends group and everything, it's just amazing. I think the one thing that I'd like to somehow in the future focus on is how much money are these Friends groups raising that are offsetting budget stuff? And they're doing a lot of hard work and raising a lot of money that is saving the overall department money, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that because it's so, these are treasures that we have, the St. Croix River Valley, the Interstate Park, the fisheries, the barrens, all these things are such assets. And the investments that are made by nonprofits, I don't think they're getting the credit that they deserve. And when you think about sustainability, it's a huge thing. So somewhere down the line, if we could, kind of see what that looks like, I think it would be really helpful in decision making. And also when you talk about all these things that aren't covered by budgets and legislative, what would happen to these resources if we don't have them? Clearly, these are passionate people who are working on projects that they're very passionate about. But what are we doing for sustainability for the next generation to come in and pick up the charge? So I'm just very interested in that because our assets in natural resources are so abundant. We are so blessed to be in this state. And again, thank you to everybody, all the staff for everything they did yesterday.
Very important question, Patty. And as you look back at our predecessors, they all left things in better shape when they left than they were in when they came. And I hope we can say the same thing. Thanks. Doug Cox, Board Members Matters.
Yep, thanks, Chair. So first off, apologies for not being able to make the meeting in person today. I'm glad for Zoom capabilities. This sure is something, that's evolved and made us comfortable in abilities to participate this way. So I'm fortunate in that, but I'd rather be in person, but things happen again. Next face-to-face one, I'm going to be there. So also important to thank St. Croix Tribe for allowing us to be on their lands, for allowing us to use their facilities. Very important when we travel to these lands and in our fellow tribal nations that we recognize them and thank them for allowing us to be here. So thank you for that. Just a quick update on my meeting last month. I did meet with staff from Midwest Environmental Advocates down in Madison. It was more of a meet and greet, similar to what I did with Voight Task Force when Todd was here. We went up and met with them, introductions, got to know people and introduced ourselves, backgrounds, took questions. So it was similar to that, but we did talk about some issues that are important to DNR, to the board, to the state, and to tribal relations. So those were good conversations. One of them related to regulatory issues, EPA rule that passed recently regarding authorities in recognition of tribal ceded territories and tribal sovereignty when in water quality action states take things like 401 certification, permitting activities that wasn't in place before as far as the need to recognize those tribal sovereignty issues, off-reservation resources, off-reservation responsibilities that tribes could never get EPA and the states to recognize that this is important in taking actions that are promulgated to states from EPA to have those authorities. So that rule is in place. It's being litigated. There's some tribes in our state that have joined that litigation supporting EPA's rule. Lac du Flambeau is one of them. I believe Mole Lake is the other. So those are things that we talked about, and issues like that one being greatly important to tribes and that do impact the state. regulatory processes and how the state, is enacting their authority promulgated from EPA. So, yeah, that was good meeting and productive. So wanted to share that with you all, and thanks for the moment to share it here.
Thank you, Doug. Deb Dassow. Deb?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would echo Doug's comments about having the ability to have this Zoom meeting that was very, very well run. And I appreciate all the work that's being done to accommodate schedules when they get a little crazy and busy. And also just the profound work on all of these projects that we listened to today, and the complicated, the old adage that what was the quote of, if if the answer is simple, it's probably wrong. But there's so many complicated and nuanced and quite interesting problems that the DNR and that this board is addressing, and I really appreciate the ability to be part of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Robin Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple of things I just wanted to mention, and I apologize, my voice doesn't carry very far, but in addition to what Patty said about tracking contributions, I think just as valuable, if not more valuable, is the time and man-hour that these local groups put into the various projects. I mean, they do work that we could never be able to do just physically because we don't have those kinds of people resources. So it's just really heartening to see that our shared values go deep within the communities. So that's really great. I wanted to comment that I had the opportunity at our dinner last night to sit at a table with a number of different tribal members and leaders. And it was eye-opening to me how much I still don't understand about tribal issues and tribal government. And so I still feel like it's a learning curve, and I hope to improve that learning curve over time. But I value the fact that we were here and we were able to have those conversations at a very basic level. Again, it just helped me realize how much I still don't know. And that's very humbling. I also wanted to congratulate the department, although it's really sad to see our secretary directors leaving after amazing contributions that you make to and have made to the department. I'm also really encouraged that not that you have replacements, but the people coming after you have been so qualified and quickly appointed. And I look forward to working with the new directors as well, and appreciate how important those positions are for the communities. So welcome, Jill, and the other secretary directors as well. I want to comment in particular for this meeting and our travel meetings, the work that's done by the IT folks to get all of this stuff and all of these wires connected using whatever internet capacities we have and making these meetings go really seamlessly. I mean, you guys are awesome. I've tried to do this for some volunteer groups, and we gave up and hired it out because we couldn't do it. So I just want you to know that we know how difficult it is, and it's seamless. So thank you very much. And lastly, I wanted to just mention that tomorrow night I'm going to go to the District 5 WCC meeting in Alma and meet with those folks. And then I think my calendar is crazy, but I think this Saturday is the Mississippi River Committee meeting. And so I'll be, and it's just down the road, fortunately, from my house, so not as much travel, but I'll be looking forward to hearing more issues from them on things associated with the Mississippi River. And I really appreciate how much I learn from and developing the relationships with people within those organizations. So I'll share the results at some point later. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcy.
You guys are tough to follow. Yeah, again, my appreciation for everything on the tour and being able to get to a part of the state that I hadn't visited much before, and the good work that's being done and the the welcome by the tribe and just again, continuing to understand the shared issues and efforts being made. Just from today's agenda, if I could get just simple follow-ups on some of our testimony. Dave Clausen's on the lead and venison. I think there's a conversation being had with the health department, and any kind of response that we can have on that communication that is on the website. I'd appreciate hearing back on that. Our friend Charlie Henriksen, to make sure that he's understanding where the scope statement is and how a scope statement is the kickoff. And then the one from Nate. I've got two different spelling. Plusness. If there is a staff person that could share with me the boundary commission information and why that change may have been made. I would guess it's has to do with landowner ownership and federal, state, local. But I'd just like a better understanding of that, please. Is that enough?
It pretty much covers most of what I wanted to talk
Oh.
about.
See,
It's all right.
you should go alphabetical and then you get the.
Thank you, Marcy.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a couple things I wanted to mention. I wanted to particularly emphasize the lead and venison issue because I read it thoroughly. I found the information very compelling, and I'm convinced there are health impacts happening right now today. And I'd ask that when staff looks into this and responds, they could share that with the entire board. I think that's something that's important not only today, but also there's repercussions of that lead that impact fish and wildlife health and so on and so forth. It's a developing issue. Secondly, I had a visit since the last meeting. I was invited to attend the Wisconsin Outdoor Communicators Association annual meeting. And it was a collection of people that have been involved in communications, information, people that focus on natural resource issues. Just wanted to mention I was there, enjoyed it. I tried to focus on the role of the board, what we are responsible for, what we can do, and really what's outside of our authority. And also historically on how the board was formed and what the intentions are for that. It was a good discussion. They had a few questions and I had fewer answers than they had questions. But I spent my time thanking them also as a very important partner in conservation. A partner that takes information, digests it, gets it out to the public, makes opinions on it. But the important thing is they spread conservation news to a much wider constituency and a broader group, and they keep people informed and engaged in conservation. And I think that's the real value, and I look upon it as a real important partnership. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, you guys have already tripled down on the thank yous here for the meeting, so I'll just keep it brief. Thanks to everybody involved in enabling this Out of Madison meeting and the very important tours in the field. It was critical. Last thing I want to mention is the next meeting of the board is another one of those out of Madison meetings, September 24, 25. We're going to be over in the Plover, Stevens Point area. So we look forward to meeting with local partners and staff there, seeing some of the issues and getting a better understanding of what's going on and making ourselves more available to citizens in that part of the state. So with that, any more comments? Any more business? I think we need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Thank you, Paul. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Patty.
Deb and Doug, we were giving you a chance.
Yep, special thanks to Doug and Deb for suffering through this communications on Zoom. I look forward to seeing you in person next month. Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Safe travels, everyone.
You too.
You